The first thing this world asked of me was to put a sword through Snow White. My name is Levi. I was 15, carrying another life's memories, and I belong to the queen who owns the magic mirror. So I cut her face instead of her throat and let her run. The mirror that sent me was a treasure too, and I found I could copy what a treasure does. The servant who was supposed to vanish from the story started collecting it instead. Like the video, hit subscribe, and the next part lands in your feed automatically. Easy trade. How did someone like me get this far? It started with a single moment. The grass under my boots quits all at once where the thorn bushes begin, and the tangled vines have looped a faded boundary stone the way a python loops a rib cage. This is the line between civilization and everything that is not civilization. Past it lies the woods the tavern bards call the Whispering Forest, and they like to say the name never belonged to people at all, that we only happen to remember what it called us. I scoff at that. It is a fine line for a man who wants a free drink, and it is worth about that much. My soul was not born here. I came from an industrial world, and at 15 I broke through whatever curtain sits over a newborn mind, and woke up carrying every memory of my past life. What I woke into was a servant's post in the kingdom of Francis. My employer was the newly wedded wife of Francis IX, holder of the magic mirror, Snow White's stepmother, Her Highness Queen Cecilia Medici. Waking up clever inside a fairy tale sounds like a gift right up until you read the small print on who signs your wages. Dry branches crack under my boots and flush a flock of blue-feathered finches out of the brush, their feathers catching the twilight like spilled ultramarine paint. The air here is leaf mold and the syrupy sweetness of wild berries. From deeper in the trees, something damp and rotten leaks out. The smell an old coffin gives up the moment the lid comes off. In front of me, sitting in the grass where she fell, is the daughter of Francis IX, the last thing the previous queen left behind in this world. The story calls her Snow White, and I am the man with the sword. She is 18, and she is the kind of beautiful that ends arguments. Snow-pale skin with a faint pearl sheen to it, deep purple-gray eyes under heavy lashes, and waist-length black hair with a blue-black shine like crow feathers soaked in night dew. I spent an entire past life scrolling past professionally beautiful women, and I still catch myself admiring her. No wonder she lifted the title of most beautiful woman in the world straight off Queen Cecilia's head, without ever trying. Being face down in the dirt with leaves in her hair does not cost her a thing either. It only makes a person want to help. She looks up with tears standing in her eyes and begs me in her father's name to spare her, calling me a young hunter. No hunter alive carries a palace sword. For one clean half-second I hesitate. The only reason my hand does not open is that a soul carrying 2 lifetimes weighs more than a soul carrying 1. I understand now why the hunter in the storybook let her walk. Some people bend a room toward themselves simply by existing, and when a girl looks at you with eyes like a still lake, mercy happens to you before you decide on it. In this life, though, the servant standing in this scene is me and not him, and that changes the ending. I tell her that I could spare her, but that the queen will not spare me, and I say it low, since volume would not make it any more true. I ask her to forgive me. I am only trying to stay alive. In the storybook, the servant lets Snow White go, kills a piglet, and carries its organs back as proof, which is a clever plan until you remember who he is lying to. The woman he is lying to owns a mirror that answers questions about the entire world. She learns the girl is alive, and the rest of the story unrolls from there, and almost nobody notices the one detail that matters to me. The servant never appears in the book again. I do not need a second source to work out how that goes, because no ruler on any world lets a betrayal like that age quietly in a drawer. I did not cross into this place to walk off stage in the first act, so I draw the long sword, and the flat of it lays a cold line of light across her face. Her eyes go from pleading to something much emptier, and the tears come off her lashes like small pearls, and anyone with a working heart would fold right here. My heart is a rock. I bring the blade down without slowing. Her scream goes up through the trees and keeps going, out and out, until the forest hands it back. When it stops, her face is running with blood, and there is a long gash across it with the edges already curling outward. I feel the corners of my mouth pull up, and something in my chest lights instead of turning over. I tell her that from today she is no longer the most beautiful woman in the world, and that she never will be again. She holds her ruined face in both hands and stares at me with resentment and confusion sharing the same expression. I toss down a packet of medicine that will stop the bleeding, and I tell her to run, to get somewhere nobody knows her name and start over from nothing. I give her a count of 3, and past that, if she is still in my sight, the fault will not be mine. I tell her again that I have to survive too, because it is the only honest thing I have said all day. She pulls herself together faster than an 18-year-old princess has any right to. She thanks me by name and tells me I am a true knight, then presses the herbs to her face, turns, finds a thin trail through the brush, and stumbles off into the whispering forest. A knight. That is the funniest thing anyone has said to me since I arrived in this world, and she said it with her face open to the bone. I watch her go and let the blue light rise behind my eyes, and information only I can read floats up against the trees. Her name reads as Evelyn Francis. Her identity is Princess of the Kingdom of Francis, the one the story calls Snow White. Strength at 0.62, Constitution at 0.58, Agility at 0.61, Spirit at 0.95, then Charm at 9.6, with abilities listed as unknown. The remarks line explains that charm at that height makes it effectively impossible for an ordinary creature to refuse anything Snow White asks for. No wonder those 7 dwarfs took her in as fast as they did in the storybook. A number like that does not leave room for debate. I am not worried about her surviving the trees, because charm is not only a face but affinity as well, with people and with everything else out there that breathes. And if I am wrong and something in that forest eats her, then she is dead, and my problems get smaller by 1. I tell her retreating back that I am sorry, and that like her, I only want to live through this rotten world. More text slides into view, the kind only I get. Using the detection spell once has earned me a point of experience, which puts me at 100 out of 100. The panel informs me the skill has reached its level up requirement and can be upgraded. I have been waiting on that line for weeks. I think the word upgrade, and I mean it hard enough that the world hears me. Blue light crosses my vision and the shape of the thing inside my head changes. The detection spell has reached level 2 and can now pull deeper information out of a wider area, and it adds that I may cast it a maximum of 5 times per day. At level 1 I had 10, so the upgrade did not come free, and the load on my body climbed right alongside the range. I need a cultivation method for supernatural power, and I need it before this skill takes me apart one headache at a time. I look toward the gap in the trees where Snow White went, and a fresh line surfaces, telling me the path through the whispering forest leads to the cabin of a mysterious existence. Experience ticks up by 1 out of 200 now. The panel calls it a mysterious existence, which is coy of it. That will be the 7 dwarfs' cabin, and I have absolutely no intention of walking up and knocking. I do not have her charm, and I do not have her affinity. The 7 dwarfs may take in Snow White, and there is no reason on this earth for them to take in me, considering I am the man who just opened her face with a blade. Whatever those 7 actually are, they are not the cheerful little miners from a picture book, because the Queen of the Magic Mirror herself will not face them head-on. Snow White walks through that door protected by a number. I would walk through it as an ordinary man with a cheat, and ordinary men with cheats come apart exactly as easily as ordinary men without them. It is only a possibility. I am not gambling my neck on the odds, even if I want to look in on her later, to keep some prince with an unhealthy interest in girls who look dead from taking advantage of her. That trip waits. It waits until I can hold my own in a fight. My confidence about the future is not decoration. When my past life memories woke, my cheat woke with them, and the cheat is not the detection spell, since the detection spell only came out of it. What crossed over with my soul was one strand of source energy, and source energy copies the power of certain objects, folds that power into a skill, and lets the skill grow. As a low-ranking servant of the Queen of the Magic Mirror, I was occasionally handed the chore of moving one of the most famous treasures in this fairy tale world, the Magic Mirror itself. Everyone else in that palace believes it is simply a mirror the Queen enjoys looking into. I touched it once. After I woke up, the source energy in me poured into the frame and came back carrying something. My soul sea opened, and a rune structure took shape inside it, complicated and weightless and cut like a 3-dimensional crystal. That structure gave me the mirror's talent, which is knowing things. Every use burns my mental energy, and too many in a row leave me wrung out and useless. What I get back is shallow next to the real mirror, because my level is low and the copy cannot reach the original. There is one place where I beat it outright though, and that is growth, since every use pays experience, and experience buys levels, and levels make the thing stronger. I named the skill I plucked out of that mirror the detection spell. After this stretch of steady use, it finally reached level 2, and what it shows me has gotten noticeably richer. I turn it on myself and pay another point, 2 out of 200. Aimed at my own body, the readout comes back specific, and specific is not the same as flattering. My line reads Levi, identity servant of the Queen of the Magic Mirror and Transmigrator, strength at 1.12, constitution at 1.01, agility at 1.03, spirit at 1.92, charm at 1.7. Under abilities it lists source energy, which cannot be upgraded, and the detection spell at level 2, sitting at 2 out of 200. The remarks line says the only bright spot is my spirit, most likely because the soul in this body came from somewhere else. 1 is the standard adult value for every attribute, which means that outside spirit and charm I am a rounding error above average. It does not matter. I have a cheat, and a cheat is enough. I use the detection spell again and turn slowly on the spot. One direction holds no danger at all. Another has a hungry lone wolf lying up along the road. A third dead ends in nothing. The fourth tells me to walk 10 minutes, turn right for 15, then turn left for 7, and I will come to a wild boar cave. The mother has just gone out to forage, and 8 newborn piglets are inside. Another point of experience, 3 out of 200, and my eyes go bright, because a wider net is worth every headache it charges me. I follow the route and find the den, half cave and half hole in the earth, with the litter exactly where it was promised and the sow still out. Nothing in there can defend itself. I kill one unlucky piglet and cut out the organs I need to pass off as a princess's remains, and I work fast, because I want the rest of the daylight for the road home. Once night falls in this world, only the human city-states count as safe. The wilderness after dark kills people as routine business, and I am one ordinary man with a good head and a mediocre body, cheat or no cheat. The cave stays behind me with blood on its floor. Half an hour later, the sow comes back wearing a shell of dried mud, sees what is left of her litter, and screams. She goes over them again and again with her snout, and what she keeps finding on her own children is a smell that does not belong to anything she knows. Her cry climbs higher and the leaves shake with it, and for a moment the whole forest sounds like it is grieving alongside her. The man responsible is already through the gates of the royal city, and his face has nothing on it at all. Dark oak beams hold up the vaulted dome of the great hall, and a heavy iron chandelier hangs from them with whale oil candles guttering in the draft, throwing shadows that will not sit still. A blood-red carpet runs the length of the floor between cold stone pillars carved with vines at their capitals. Gold thread tapestries of old knights fighting dragons hang along the walls, and dust drifts through the low light in no particular hurry. An expressionless court lady walks me down the long hunting corridor and leaves me standing outside the bedchamber of the Queen of the Magic Mirror. The room beyond that door is all dim candlelight and deep red velvet curtains, with yellowed parchment pasted over the window lattices to keep the cold out. The court lady goes in, comes back out, and brings me before the person who actually runs this kingdom, Queen Cecilia Medici, owner of the Magic Mirror. This is not my first time inside, since a servant who is not a personal attendant still gets sent in now and then, and the perfume in here never changes. My state of mind changes every time. My eyes go to the center of the room first, the way they always do. An obsidian throne sits there, carved over with thorns and roses, and the woman on it arrives in my vision like a flowering datura, beautiful and not safe. Deep red velvet gown, the hem spilling down the steps like poured blood, gold thorn embroidery at the cuffs and collar, a gilded belt set with obsidian at her waist, ivory skin, emerald eyes with the stillness of a deep pool, and heavy chestnut curls to her waist pinned with diamonds and tied with ruby ribbon that catches every candle in the room. She is powerful and paranoid, and she is striking enough that without Snow White in the world, nobody could stand beside her. Even with Snow White in the world, the margin was thin. I go down on one knee and report that I followed her instructions and killed Snow White, and that she is now the most beautiful woman in the world. She presses her lips together and laughs a little, in a good mood, and tells me that this is not mine to declare. I put a properly puzzled expression on my face and hold it. She offers no explanation whatsoever. She looks at the corner of the room instead. A magic mirror stands there, enormous, framed in ebony and set with dark red gems, and when her gaze lands on it, the surface begins to move like water. She addresses it by name twice, the way the old story does, and asks who is the most beautiful woman in the world. A voice comes out of the glass, calls her queen, her own queen, and tells her she is the most beautiful woman in the world. She turns back to me wearing satisfaction like jewelry, and I make certain my face is doing astonishment and disbelief, which is easy, because half of it is real. She tells me, smiling, that this is magic, so the mistress of the kingdom is a witch, and the witch has decided today is the day I get to know it. Her smile does not slip, since the mirror's answer has put her in an excellent temper, and she tells me the world is full of interesting things and that I have done well. Then she asks me to name my reward. I tell her humbly that I only wish to remain at her side and serve her forever. What I actually want is transcendent power, and I would sooner chew glass than say that out loud in this room. I do not need to say it, because the detection spell will get me there in time. She asks whether that is really so, amused and mocking and leaning into it, and my composure slips in a way she can see from the throne. Demoness. She enjoys watching me almost lose my footing, and she takes her time about it. She laughs softly and says every young eagle gets its day to spread its wings, and that she needs squires to take up sword and shield for her castle. Then she asks whether I am willing. I tell her I am, and I let exactly the right amount of excitement onto my face. She nods, satisfied, and gives me a day to decide what I want to receive, suggesting a barony with land attached, though she leaves the choice to me. I bow my head deep and offer this woman my unreserved loyalty, as if. The luck in all this is that I cut Snow White instead of sparing her. Had I let her walk and had this woman found out, I would have been dragged out of the palace and used as fertilizer before the story reached its second page. What I did not expect was the size of the payment, a title with a fief attached, for getting rid of one pretty girl, and half the kingdom would go out of its mind if those terms ever got out. I am still worried, and it has nothing to do with the money. The Queen of the Magic Mirror let me watch the mirror work, which means she let me learn that she practices magic, and if that ever spreads, she goes from untouchable to cornered overnight. So either this is trust, or she has already decided I will not live long enough to repeat it. I walk out through the long hunting corridor with that question sitting in my chest, and something makes me look back over my shoulder. The panel tells me the queen inside the palace has the strength to crush me without effort, that she is extremely dangerous, and that if I keep prying there is a risk of being noticed. Experience +1, 4 out of 200. At level 1, this skill could barely tell me the color of her dress. At level 2, it tells me plenty, and it also sets a weight on me I feel in my knees, a tiredness that reads as a warning rather than a complaint. I face forward and keep walking, because there is nothing to do but take this one step at a time. The storybook never says a word about what happened to the servant, so I have no reference material and nobody to copy. I come out of the palace with my head full, and a garbage cart rolls past along the palace wall. Something about it snags at me, so I call out to the driver and ask what he is hauling. He answers respectfully, calling me Lord Levi, and says it is palace waste that has to be taken away. A servant is only a servant, but a servant of the queen still outranks the man who moves the palace's garbage. I have him open the cart and pull the lid off one of the wooden barrels, and inside is a heap of miscellaneous junk with a pool of black, foul-smelling water at the bottom. I ask where the barrel came from, and he thinks about it and says the queen's court lady brought it out. I let the answer pass without comment, since I had already guessed. The detection spell reads the sludge as failed magic potion, and there is exactly one person in this palace who brews such things. In the storybook, the queen went after Snow White with potions again and again, and came close to finishing her more than once, which tells you her potion work is nothing like amateurish. The failed potions are not what has my attention. What has my attention is a clot of dark blue ointment stuck to the inside of the barrel. The detection spell calls it a badly brewed beauty potion that accidentally acquired the ability to kill an ordinary person. Experience +1, 5 out of 200, which is my 5th use of the day. My skull answers with waves of sharp, cutting pain, the skill's way of saying I am finished. I stand there a moment and breathe through it, then take out a piece of cloth and wrap the ointment up carefully. I tell the puzzled driver that the stuff looks interesting and I am taking it home to play with. He is in no position to argue with the queen's servant, so he looks relieved and drives away. I head back to my room outside the royal city, because servants like me do not sleep inside the palace. Only the core staff live in, close enough to serve the king, the queen, and the princes and princesses on demand, and the rest of us rent in the streets beyond the walls. My status is lower than people assume when they hear where I work. No noble blood, and a commoner's background means every squire and servant with so-called noble blood has spent years making sure I never forget it. So I live out here, which honestly suits me. The palace is wall to wall with eyes, and there are things I would rather do where nobody is watching. The room is small and the rent takes a third of what I earn. A mid-level palace servant draws 500 silver coins a year, plus rations and goods worth another 200 to 300. That averages out near 40 silver coins a month, and 12 of those go straight to the landlord. 1 silver coin buys somewhere between half a pound and a pound of bread, depending on how the market feels that week. It is not a large income, but with the good stacked on top, it keeps me at a standard this city would call decent, provided you use the word the way the poor use it. None of that matters now. I did the queen's dirty work, and the queen is handing me land, so the thing to think about is which ownerless fief to ask for. The next question is how to develop the place into something that makes me a rich and powerful lord. Personal strength has to come along with the title. My employer is a witch with real magic in her hands, and acquiring some supernatural power of my own goes onto the list tonight. What happens tonight, in practice, is that I drop onto the bed and sleep, because I cannot hold my head up 1 minute longer. Midnight. My eyes open on their own, and I push the window wide and let the moonlight pour across the floor, still half stupid with sleep. I look toward the palace and use the detection spell out of pure habit. This time it does something new, because along with reading whatever sits in front of me, it now hands me one piece of information about my own situation every day. 3 lines come up together, and my night ends right there. Intelligence 1 tells me Snow White has found the house where the 7 dwarfs live in the forest and used her enormous charm to win their agreement to let her stay. Intelligence 2 tells me the queen of the magic mirror, Cecilia, is preparing to silence me, and that she will send a young knight squire named Gorn Sotofi to kill me. Intelligence 3 tells me that under the old tree on Leda Street, inside the trunk marked with an X, lies a night breathing method that Snow White's mother buried there when she was young. Experience +1, 6 out of 200, and the headache can wait its turn. I curse at the empty room. That woman has no honor anywhere in her, and I did her filthy job for her, and this is the receipt she writes. I knew there was nothing good in a queen suddenly showing me magic she had kept hidden the whole time I served her. Now the only question worth my time is how to get out of this city alive before her knight gets to my door. Inside the queen's room, Cecilia stands before the magic mirror and asks it whether Levi has said anything about Snow White to anyone else. The surface ripples and gives up its answer. It says he has told nobody anything about Snow White, then it volunteers, without being asked, that he talks in his sleep about the queen's figure. In that same sleep, it reports, he rates Snow White as no competition for her. The queen goes still. Then her face darkens, and she sends for a servant, exquisitely dressed, slender and pale. This one is the second son of some noble house in the kingdom, with no right of inheritance, packed off by his family to serve the king, and now attached to the queen. Something ugly moves in the back of his eyes whenever he looks at her. He has wanted a closer sort of service for a long while, and she has never offered him the opening, so the wanting has been eating at him. He has never once let it show on his face. A noble does not lose his bearing in front of the queen, and that is the line he repeats to himself. He bows and announces himself as her loyal servant Gorn Sotufi, awaiting her command at any hour, her sword and her shield, never a traitor, the man who clears her obstacles away. She tells him his loyalty is as bright as the sun, and that she has a task for him now. He answers that he is at her service. She does not react at all to the title he uses for her. She tells him, calmly, that Levi was a servant she once trusted deeply and that he betrayed her. She wants Gorn Sotufi to go, cut off Levi's head, and bring it back to her. The order does not alarm him. It delights him. He says a man like Levi, with dirty blood running in him, will never understand gratitude or loyalty. Her Highness has simply been too kind to that sort, he adds, and it is a pity they never learn to be grateful. He promises her the head before sunrise. She tells him she will wait for his good news, and she calls him Knight Gorn. That word is a promise, and inside the promise sits a fiefdom, maybe an estate. For a second son with no inheritance, that is not a reward so much as an entire life handed over. He swears he will not disappoint her, bows, and leaves the palace for the streets outside where Levi rents his room. His confidence is earned. Even a spare noble son trains as a knight from childhood, and the core of that training is not swordsmanship or horsemanship but the knight breathing method. It tempers the body past its natural limits and condenses life energy into power that flesh alone cannot produce. He is lean rather than heavy, and his strength and speed sit far beyond anything an ordinary person can reach. What he does not have is an address. Nobody with noble blood has ever needed to know where a commoner sleeps, so finding my room costs him time, and that delay is the only gift anyone hands me tonight. I stand in the dark beside my window and watch him come up the street with a lit torch, one unhurried step at a time. The detection spell goes on. It tells me Gorn Sotufi has been ordered by the queen to cut off my head, and it charges me a point, 7 out of 200. My face goes cold. So she really does want me dead, and she wanted it before I finish washing the princess off my hands. Level 2 gives me his numbers as well. He reads as Gorn Sotufi, member of the Sotufi family, attendant to the Queen of the Magic Mirror. Strength at 2.5, Constitution at 2.11, Agility at 2.61. Spirit sits at 1.45 and Charm at 1.3, with abilities unknown. The remarks line says his strength, Constitution and Agility all run more than double an ordinary person's, and that this is not a human being, but a monster wearing human skin. My expression does not change, because none of it is news to me. This world has magic, and it has knights. Knights train with a secret method called the night breathing method, until a life energy seed forms in them and their bodies leave the human scale behind. Gorn Sotufi has not grown that seed yet, which means his numbers are not even impressive by palace standards, and the real knights I have watched on duty are considerably worse to look at. Mediocre next to a true knight is still far more than enough to kill me twice over. Put in the terms of my old world, he is a champion athlete crossed with a special forces soldier. Strength above 2 puts him near the ceiling of elite weightlifting, able to take up a 200-kilogram barbell without ceremony. He can punch through boards, flip a motorcycle with his bare hands, and pin a grown man one-handed. Constitution above 2 lets him absorb a baton strike and keep fighting, run or brawl for hours without tiring, and heal at roughly twice the normal rate. It also keeps him working in extreme cold or heat, with disease resistance no ordinary body comes close to. Agility above 2 brings his 100-meter time toward 10 seconds and his vertical jump past 60 centimeters, and it lets him throw difficult backflips or change direction faster than the eye follows. In a fight it means he can slip a bullet, provided his reaction beats the trigger, or by moving hard inside a narrow space. He drops 3 or 4 untrained opponents bare-handed and moves at speed through broken ground without losing his edge. He carries slight bullet resistance, since the muscle catches the round instead of letting it through, along with strong resistance to poison and disease. Over a short sprint he can push toward the speed of sound, 100 meters in under 3 seconds. He has also been trained to kill since he was old enough to hold a blade, and he is armed. To a man like that, a commoner without even a surname is not a problem worth planning around. So when he stands outside my door and hears a steady heartbeat and steady breathing inside, he sneers and shoves the door open without breaking stride. A bucket of water comes down over his head and soaks him through, and his torch dies on the spot. He calls me a commoner with enough rage behind it to burn a house down, and then, before his hand can close on my throat, he discovers that his body will not move at all. It was not water. The panel spells the whole thing out for me. It was a bucket of poisoned water mixed with the Queen's failed magic potion, and anyone who touches it goes rigid within 1 second, with irreversible damage to the body. Dissolving that ointment thinned it considerably. Against a man who never grew his life energy seed, thinned is plenty. I walk up to him with cold moonlight coming through the window, across his face and over me, and his eyes, the only working part of him left, start pleading with everything they have. I tell him that he would not have spared me, and I bring the long sword down hard on his head. Blood goes up the wall, and he shuts his eyes on his own despair and pain. I check that he is finished, and then I loot him, which is the one part of this night I genuinely enjoy. He yields 1 gold coin, 13 silver coins, and a dagger with a cold shine along the blade. Better than nothing, and not much better than that. I bundle it all up, step out, and close the door gently behind me, since I need to be clear of the royal city before the Queen hears a word of this. Except the third piece of information is still sitting in my head, the night breathing method that Snow White's mother buried as a girl. Power like that is not something I can simply walk past, and Lita Street happens to be the street I am standing on right now. I hesitate exactly long enough to admit that I am about to risk my life over a book, and then I go and do it. The tree gives it up, a yellowed manual, the Moonwolf night breathing method. It also cost me time I could not spare, and daybreak is coming up behind me like a bill. The street is dark and silent with only moonlight to see by, so I lean on the detection spell to pick my road out. One direction has the Royal Caltrop Guard on patrol, 3 minutes from where I am standing. Another runs half an hour straight into the seam between the Noble District and the Commoner District, where several great houses keep a joint night watch. A third goes straight, then right, then left into a vicious dog that has eaten human flesh before. A fourth is a plain dead end. A fifth puts me 45 minutes down the road into a group of thieves splitting up their take. The last one is the slum quarter, with no patrols at all, though the spell warns me about the smell coming from every direction and the fecal landmines waiting underfoot. Experience +1, 8 out of 200. Running it over and over has scraped my mind raw, and this is a poor night to rest. Somewhere in that pile of warnings there is a safe route, and I take it and do not look back once. The spell walks me around every patrol and every other creature working the royal city after dark, and I come up on the city wall without being seen. The gates are shut tight. Standing at them are true night class things with stats above 3, and non-human is the honest word for what they are. I watch from the shadows with my brows drawing together, because there is no version of tonight where I climb that wall in front of them. Every cast leans on my spirit. The supply is not endless, and past a certain point the only choices are rest or a headache that splits your skull down the middle. I am standing on that line already. I am also standing inside a city whose queen wants me silenced before morning, so I push through and cast anyway. The panel tells me that 513 meters to the left along the wall, under stones grown over with weeds, there is a dog hole a person can barely crawl through. It is a private door for the sort of people who prefer not to meet the gate guards. Experience +1, 9 out of 200. The thing I stole out of the magic mirror has not disappointed me once yet. At the gate, the knight resting with his eyes shut opens them and looks hard at the spot where I was. There is nothing there for him to find. He mutters something about another rat coming up out of the sewer, then settles back against the stone and closes his eyes again. On the other side of the wall, the night has turned colder, and I come out of the dog hole onto the waste ground with dead grass hissing in the wind around me. Wolves are howling somewhere far enough off to sound mournful rather than urgent. The farmland has gone completely into the dark, and the low farmhouses sit in it like headstones. The only thing still lit anywhere is the monastery spire, a dull yellow glow behind its courtyard walls. To my left, the sky lies over the old forest like a sheet of black cloth pressed flat. Whatever daylight was left got swallowed by the canopy, and only a few threads of moonlight come through the branches to scatter silver across the floor. The trees out there have turned into twisted giants, trunks furred with moss like the cracked hide of something enormous, and the vines hanging off them stir in the wind like tentacles. That is the Whispering Forest, where I put a sword through a princess's face, endless in every direction and touching the borders of more than one country. To my right, the land ends in the hills they call the Indel Mountains. Under the moon, their curves have gone soft and vague, like the slow breathing of an earth that is sound asleep. I think about it for a moment. Then I walk toward the Indel Mountains without hesitating again. The dark is full of things that would be delighted to end this story tonight, and I reach the foot of the mountains anyway, on nothing but luck. By then I am finished. Too many casts, and if I collapse out here, the queen will not need to lift a finger, because whatever hunts these slopes will take what is left and not bother leaving bones. I make myself spend one last use, and it finds me a hidden burrow close by, maybe a hunter's work, and maybe not. I do not have the strength left to care which. I crawl in, seal the entrance behind me, and my eyes close before I decide to close them. The next day, the palace head steward, Frey, brings the queen her news, apologizing first, then reporting that the body of her attendant Gorn Sodafi was found in Levi's room. The queen does not ask a single question about Gorn Sodafi. She asks about Levi. Frey tells her plainly that Levi was not at the scene, and that nobody in the palace has located him. She adds that Bertram the knight, who kept the night watch at the city gate, reported nothing unusual. The queen considers putting the question to the magic mirror and decides against it, because the mirror charges for its answers, and she pays that price every day for her own beauty. Levi is not worth the same coin. She turns it over and says their cute little Levi must still be hiding in some corner of the city, and that he is a clever little thing. Then she says it is a pity he cruelly killed her stepdaughter and murdered her attendant, and that this cannot be forgiven, and she shakes her head as she says it. She orders the patrol guard mobilized and tells them she wants Levi's head before sunset. Frey agrees, bows, and withdraws. A quarter of an hour later, the palace patrol guard forms up in armor and begins hunting through the royal city street by street. Knight Hsane commands that patrol guard, and he takes the assignment for a simple one. By dusk, he has not found a single trace of Levi, as though the man stopped existing somewhere between one house and the next. His face is the color of coal when he goes before the queen to confess. She laughs, which from her is the worst available sign, and throws a gilded wine pot into his face while telling him how deeply he has disappointed her. Hsane does not dodge, because dodging is not permitted to him. Blood-red wine runs down his face and he leaves it there, head lowered, taking the whole of her fury without a word. Her chest rises and falls, and she is genuinely enraged, all of it over one stinking mouse, and it takes her a long while to come back down. Then she tells him coldly that he has 3 more days, and that even if Levi has died in a sewer and been chewed past recognition by rats, Hsane will find him and bring him. Hussein breathes again, since the queen leans on him harder than the late king ever did. He swears on his family name that as long as that vermin Levi remains inside the royal city, he will drag the man out within a day. The queen has stopped listening and waves him out of the room. After he goes, the resentment stays behind with her, because the Levi business sits in her throat like a fishbone she cannot cough up. What bothers her more is the shape of the thing. An ordinary man should never have been a match for Gorn, and yet Gorn is dead, and the ordinary man is missing. She wonders whether some force she cannot see has put a hand into this, or whether the late king left something behind that is still moving in the dark. Her frown deepens the longer she works at it. She weighs the mirror again and refuses again, because a man like Levi cannot possibly have left this city, so all she needs is patience and one competent night. 3 days go by. Hussein kneels in front of her with his shame on open display, and the queen cannot be bothered to look at him at all. She gives Frey a glance, and Frey calls the guards in to take Hussein away for punishment. Then the queen sits with her frown a while longer and finally walks into her inner chamber, to the mirror. She asks the old question first, addressing it by name twice, wanting to know who the most beautiful woman in the world is. The glass calls her queen and tells her the answer is herself. That is when the smile finally arrives. To her, that answer proves Levi really did kill Snow White, since otherwise the mirror would be saying the girl's name instead of hers. She hates admitting it, but Snow White's charm was not something anyone could stand against. That much pull at 18, and a few more years would have made it monstrous. The girl's beauty would have worked like enchantment magic in its final form, with everyone alive doing whatever she asked. Fortunate, then, that such a person is dead, and that a servant did the work. It never occurs to the Queen of the Magic Mirror that Snow White is alive and merely disfigured by a servant who cheated the terms. A disfigured Snow White is no competition, and competition is the only thing the mirror measures for her. Had she ever asked directly whether the girl was dead, the truth would have fallen out of the glass years early. She never asks, because she cares about exactly one question, which is who is more beautiful than she is. So there will be no old woman knocking at a cottage door in the forest, no repeated attempts on the girl's life, because there is no longer any reason for one. Using the mirror once leaves her looking unwell, which confirms that it charges a real price, since it searches the entire world to find its answer, and the world is not a small place. She takes a deep breath and asks it again, by name, where Levi is now. It calls her queen and answers that Levi has crossed the Indel Mountains, come through the Shadow Valley, and is nearly at Zalantu City on the border. As it speaks, a travel-worn Levi appears on the surface of the glass. The queen stares at him. Then comes an anger of a kind she has not felt before. She sneers at the figure in the mirror and asks the little mouse how he managed it, covering that much ground in 3 or 4 days. Levi has put nearly 70 or 80 kilometers between himself and the royal city, which counts as a serious distance. The wild at night is lethal. Magical creatures are active in some stretches of it, and real knights get into trouble out there regularly. Her eyes shimmer, and her interest in Levi turns into something far stronger than annoyance. She goes out to Frey and tells her that Levi is nearly at Zalantu City, and that Hussein is to bring him back alive by whatever method he likes, and Frey agrees. I have no idea any of that is happening. What I have is a viper. The detection spell talks me through it while I dodge clumsily, and the triangular head misses and then holds in place, staring at me for a long time while I keep every muscle still. Eventually it gives up and pours itself away through the grass. I spend another use confirming it has really gone, then let out a breath and wipe the cold sweat off my forehead. In 3 or 4 days I have lost count of how many times something out here has tried to kill me. I have run the detection spell until it practically smoked, and it has walked me out of every one of them, and I have arrived here intact and not starved to death. Not starved is doing considerable work in that sentence. I have been drinking river water, eating wild fruit and roots, and now and then catching something small, and my body is at the end of what that kind of diet supports. What I want is a city, a bed and food that somebody cooked on purpose. Living rough long enough has made oatmeal porridge and black bread sound genuinely good to me. The thought that keeps coming back is a camper van from my old life, which is a pipe dream, and I know it while I am thinking it. In this era, the ceiling is a horse-drawn carriage. Even that would be something. 4 walls against the wind and the rain, and after the nights I have had, 4 walls qualifies as a luxury good. With a carriage I would already be where I am going instead of here. Zalantu City is the goal, and it is still half a day out at walking pace. My legs feel packed with lead, so I do the one useful thing available and promise myself a hot bath the moment I arrive. at whatever price they want to name. After the bath, a decent restaurant, a table covered in good food, and one enormous unhurried meal. Thinking about the food of my old life makes my mouth water, which only makes me hungrier. So I decide to burn another use of the detection spell on finding something to put in my stomach. The first answer is that the plant in front of me is poisonous and inedible. The second is that another plant is a root buried 3 meters underground containing some starch and edible. 3 meters down, with what? My hands and my remaining will to live? I curl my lip at that one and look somewhere else entirely. A new line comes up, telling me that 5 minutes straight ahead and then left there is a clearing where 2 wild wolves have targeted a man leading a gold donkey. It charges me a point, 26 out of 200. A gold donkey. I stand there working out whether that means a donkey made of gold or a donkey with a gold-colored hide, and curiosity wins the argument in about 2 seconds flat. I draw the dagger I keep for emergencies and start walking. 5 minutes later, I push the hanging branches aside and there is the clearing, exactly as advertised. 2 wolves, one on either side, are fixed on a man in a coarse linen cloak, with light brown hair and a scatter of freckles across his face. He wears expensive leather armor and holds a dagger set with sapphires. Beside him stands a donkey that looks entirely ordinary and is not remotely bothered by any of this. The wolves have not committed yet. The one on the left is huge, shoulder blades standing up like rocks, muscle rolling under gray-brown fur, and it lowers its head slowly until its wet nose touches the ground. The one on the right is the quick one, spine bowed into a taut arc, amber eyes locked on the man's throat where his collar has fallen open and his breathing is running fast. Then my boots find a dry branch. Both wolves turn, look at me, and look at each other. The one on the left goes, a gray streak tearing through dead leaves and leaf mold on its way to my throat, and it is faster than my body knows how to answer. I throw out the detection spell on reflex. It tells me the wolf will have my throat in 2 seconds. If I half squat right now, raise the dagger to my left at eye level and grip it tight, the animal's own momentum will drive the blade through its throat. My body obeys before my mind finishes reading the line. Something enormous slams into me, and because I was braced for it, I stay upright, and I feel the dagger go into something solid. When I look, the blade has gone through the wolf's throat. 1 strike and 1 kill. I pull it free and the blood comes out across my face, and the animal slides to the ground like a drop sack and starts staining the dirt red. The second wolf sees it happen and lets out a high, ragged scream, then bares its teeth at me. The freckled man charges in with his dagger and stabs at it, and the wolf slips the blade easily. I hurry over to help him. My body is nothing special, and the night breathing method has been in my bag this entire journey with no chance to practice a single line of it. What I do have is the detection spell, which I am starting to think of less as a spell and more as a machine that feeds me hints. Hints turn out to be enough. Between the two of us, the second wolf goes down, and the moment it drops, so do I, more or less. It is not the fight that does it. It is hunger stacked on top of a day of leaning on the detection spell like a crutch. My vision goes black at the edges, and just as I am hoping for 1 quiet minute to recover, the freckled man runs over and wraps me in a hug. He thanks me at volume and says that without me he would have been in real danger today. Then he declares that from this day on I am the most important friend Rudolph has, outside his family and his teacher. I want to roll my eyes back into my skull. Thankfully he notices something is wrong and lets go, because by then I have folded down into a sitting position and I look like a man with 4 minutes left on the clock. He asks anxiously what is wrong with me, and all I can get out is that I am tired and I am hungry. I did not die at the hands of the Queen of the Magic Mirror, and I did not die in the jaws of 2 wolves. It would be a poor showing to die out here in front of a man named Rudolph. He thinks fast, to his credit. He runs to the donkey, digs a bottle of blood-red wine out of the pack it carries and gets it into me. I drink in long swallows and feel the strength climb back up through my body until my face goes warm. Then he brings over soft white bread with blueberry jam and hands it across, and I take one look at him and stop pretending to have manners. He laughs while I tear into it and tells me to slow down, that he has plenty more. When the wine and the bread are gone, I have most of myself back, and I thank him for it. He tells me he is the one who should be giving thanks, since I saved his life, and then he asks for my name. I give it to him straight, because a man who hands a stranger his wine and his bread has earned that much from me. He says the name back to himself once, then asks where I am headed and suggests we might travel together. I tell him the truth, that I am going to Zelentu City, and that I am tired enough to want a place to rest before setting out again. That lights him up completely. He tells me he is going the same way, that he has been away from home far too long, and that he has learned a few skills. His teacher gave him a good thing, and he does not think his father will be angry with him over any of it now, so he is heading home. Zelentu City happens to sit on his road, and he tells me we should go together. I take my time with it, then tell Rudolph that if that is how things stand, we may as well travel together. When we reach Zelentu City, I will find us an inn and buy him a meal. I still have a little money on me. He waves the whole idea away and says the treat is his, that money is the least important thing in the world to him and friendship is worth more than any of it. I give him a long look and decide not to argue. Then he tells me I should ride his donkey since I clearly need it more than he does. Before I can turn him down, he is already pushing me toward the animal and boosting me onto its back. He says he would not let just anyone ride it, because the donkey is his treasure, but that I am his friend through life and death, and therefore an exception. I meant to refuse. Then my hand lands on the donkey's flank, and something moves in me. My source energy stirs on its own, runs down through my palm, circles once inside the gold donkey, and comes back carrying something new. In my soul sea, a fresh crystal is forming, and I know what it is before it finishes shaping itself. The conversion spell. It is an ability that turns one kind of matter into another, and leaves into gold as only the most famous result, not the only one. It can also be turned inward to strengthen my own attributes. That is the same trick as the attribute point energy I farmed out of the deep blue cheat in my old life. What I copied is only the base version, and it will need constant use to level up. Exactly like my detection spell, which is still nowhere near the depth of the magic mirror. Right now it cannot make me a single flake of gold. It can still do plenty. I activate it on the food sitting in my stomach, and some quiet force breaks the meal down into raw energy that my body drinks up in seconds. The system tells me I have used the conversion spell once. Experience +1, current experience 1 out of 100. The wine flush drains out of my face, my strength comes back, my head stops feeling scraped hollow, and I have enough left to run the detection spell once or twice more tonight. The part that actually matters is that my constitution has taken a permanent step up, 0.01. From 1.01 to 1.02. I turn the detection spell on myself to confirm it. The panel gives my name as Levi, and my identity is transmigrator and fugitive. Strength sits at 1.12, constitution at 1.02, agility at 1.03, spirit at 1.92, charm at 1.7. Under abilities it lists source energy, which cannot be upgraded, detection spell at level 2 sitting at 28 out of 200. And conversion spell at level 1 with 1 out of 100. The remarks line is the interesting part. Now that I hold a new ability, items that would have passed through me harmlessly before can trigger a special reaction when absorbed. That reaction may permanently raise my physical constitution, and it may also injure me. So I cannot simply eat whatever I feel like anymore. Wonderful. I want to open the detection spell again and dig into what that warning means, but I have burned it too many times today and my skull is throbbing, so I let it go. Instead, I look down at Rudolph, who is walking ahead with the lead rope in his hand like a man escorting a prince, and then I look at the donkey he is leading. Night comes down over the road. By the time we stop, I have recovered enough to run the one thing I only get once a day, my daily intelligence detection, and 3 lines arrive in my vision. Intelligence 1 says, the Queen of the Magic Mirror has already found my current location through the mirror and has sent a genuine night-level subordinate to hunt me down. Intelligence 2 says Snow White is living an easy life with the 7 dwarfs, who dote on her and are trying to find a way to erase the scar on her face completely. Intelligence 3 says Rudolph's gold donkey eats leaves and passes gold, and that it was a gift from his teacher. I barely glance at the first 2 before my eyes lock on the third. If I cannot put this together now, I deserve whatever happens to me. These are pieces out of another grim story, the table, the gold donkey, and the stick. That makes Rudolph the shepherd's second son, and it makes the animal that just handed me an ability the gold-producing donkey from that tale. I had assumed this world was Snow White and the Queen of the Magic Mirror and nothing else. It is not one story. It is all of them stacked in the same map. I find myself curious about which fairy tale characters I will meet next, and honestly a little greedy about it, because any of them might be carrying another ability for me to copy. It also explains why Rudolph travels like a lord, with good wine and white bread and a short sword with gemstones set into the hilt. A man with a walking gold mine on a rope does not need to budget. The difference is that I now own the same trick in seed form, and once I level the conversion spell far enough, I will not need to borrow anyone's donkey. Even at level 1, the spell is worth more to me than a purse full of coins. It lets me convert certain special energy substances, which means certain things out in the world can now raise my physical constitution, and nothing has ever been able to do that for me before. Wealth sits outside a man and can be taken from him. A body that has been permanently improved goes where I go. Pair the conversion spell with the detection spell, which can tell me exactly what to swallow and what will kill me, and the combination is enormous. I am itching to start testing it immediately, except the dark is complete now and the daily intelligence has left my head wrung out. So we build a fire, and I spend the night half asleep with my back to a tree. Morning. We set off for Zalantu City, and I keep the detection spell running low and steady along the roadside, letting labels bloom over everything green. One is a red-eyed mushroom, poisonous, which turns the eyes red and brings on hallucinations and can kill outright in a bad dose. One is a cluster of unnamed berries, and that line stops me. It says the berries are compatible with my constitution. Eating 100 grams a day for 3 days running, each dose processed through the conversion spell, permanently raises my constitution by 0.2 and my strength by 0.1. The side effect is 3 days of diarrhea. The third is snake tongue grass, shaped like a snake's tongue, harmless, and reportedly tastes like old fish. I go for the berries. Rudolph catches on and frowns at me, warning me that the stuff is unpleasant, that he recognizes it and I will not want it. I tell him I have other uses for it. He gives up arguing, wades into the brush himself, picks a large pile of the unnamed berries with his own hands, stuffs them into his pocket for me, and we walk on. An hour of grassy slope and the outline of a city rises out of the morning air. Zalantu, a border city of the Kingdom of Francis. The gates stand open already, with guards working slowly through the merchants and farmers moving in and out. Outside the wall, peddlers push their carts up with fresh bread and cheese and vegetables from the outlying farms, staking out places for the morning market. Rudolph and I fall into the flow, pay the entry toll, and get through without anyone looking twice at me. The streets are still quiet, the stone underfoot damp from night rain, wooden doors and iron gates creaking open one by one. Housewives are drawing water and lighting fires for breakfast. Children are being pushed out into the day rubbing their eyes, off to mind live livestock or learn a trade. The bakery is already breathing out oven heat and the smell of rising dough, and the smith's forge is climbing toward working temperature. It would be beautiful if you could edit out the smell. The air here is fermenting waste and the ground is caked with it. Walking through town is walking through an enormous public latrine that nobody has ever cleaned, the kind where something might come down out of a window at any moment. Rudolph strolls through it without noticing. I do notice, and I have no choice but to swallow it. We work our way along the street until we reach an inn called Old Ball's House, and when I push the door open it groans on its hinge and lets us into the lobby. The place is a tavern as much as an inn, the kind of room where information gets traded and where idle men can sit all day on 1 cup of malt ale. The floor is packed earth with worn stone slabs set into it here and there, damp and uneven under the boot. Heavy wooden tables and benches are scattered around, a few of them missing legs and propped up on broken stone. Their tops are carved over with knife marks of every depth, some left by bored travelers, some the ravings of drunks, some said to be oaths sworn by soldiers before a battle. An old harp leans against the wall in the corner with its strings gone slack, clearly not played seriously in years. Overhead a heavy beam crosses the roof with oil lamps hanging from it, the wicks whispering as they burn, throwing shadows that make a low ceiling feel lower. There are already customers. 2 mercenaries in leather armor with short swords at their belts sit travel-worn at a table, carving up roast venison with their daggers, eyes moving over everyone who comes through the door. Alone in the shadow is a traveler in a gray cloak with the hood pulled far down, face invisible. A hand comes out now and then to lift a wooden cup, and the rest of him is plainly uninterested in talking. When we walk in, that hidden face tilts up a fraction and sweeps a glance across us, and I catch something like surprise in it before the head drops again. In a tavern you meet every kind of creature wearing every kind of skin. I keep my face empty. Rudolph, who should be the relaxed one, has gone awkward in the doorway and will not step further in. The reason is standing outside on a rope, and he does not want to leave it. A man comes over to us, old silver-haired, white-bearded, with deep-set eyes and a clean robe that carries a faint whiff of better days. Everything about him reads ordinary until you watch him move. He asks whether there is anything about his house that fails to satisfy us, introduces himself as the owner, Ball, and says everyone here calls him Old Ball. Then he invites us in for a cup of ale and adds that the first cup is free and on him, and he says it in a way that is oddly hard to refuse. Rudolph warms to him instantly and says he would like that very much, but that he has an old friend to settle first, a friend more important to him than his own life. Old Ball laughs and says the friendship of animals is often purer than the friendship of men, that he will handle it himself, and that the house keeps a special stable. He reaches for the lead rope the way an innkeeper reaches for 100 lead ropes a week. Rudolph's hand clamps down on it, and he says no, that he will walk the animal to the stable himself, that he knows where it has to be tied. Old Ball finds that strange and clearly writes him off, because a traveler who insists on doing his own stable work is usually a traveler with an empty purse. Then Rudolph digs out 2 gold coins, hands them over, and asks him to bring back something good to eat. The old man's eyes go wide, and he hurries out to buy the best food in the district. We settle the gold donkey together. Rudolph looks back over his shoulder at the stable 4 separate times before he finally lets me steer him into the lobby and onto a bench. There he tells me the meal is only the beginning. He intends to hand me a sum large enough that I will never have to think about money again for the rest of my life, because I saved him. To Rudolph, coins are leaves. As it happens, I need funding for my own cultivation, so I nod and tell him plainly that I know money means nothing to him, and that I am not going to make a polite show of refusing. That answer delights him. He likes it when people say what they actually want, and he sits there beaming at me like I have paid him a compliment. Old Bal comes back with an armload of food, and the smell of it fills the corner. Rudolph is hungry too and waves me in first, so I stop being polite and eat, running the conversion spell the whole time, breaking every mouthful down and pushing the energy into my body. By the end, 70% of everything on the table has gone into me, and I am about 50% full. Rudolph and Old Bal both stare. Rudolph asks whether I seriously have room for more. I pat my stomach and tell him the next meal will handle it. He shakes his head and says out loud that he had better leave me more money than he planned, or I will starve inside a month. Then he turns to Old Bal and asks how much is still owed for the meal. The 2 gold coins Rudolph handed over earlier were already more than enough. Old Bal, however, has decided this young traveler is worth probing, so he doubles the price and says 3 gold coins are still outstanding. Rudolph does not blink at the number, because he genuinely has no sense of what things cost, and reaches for his pocket only to discover he has just run dry. He asks the innkeeper to wait a moment while he fetches the money, then turns to me with an apologetic smile and asks me to sit tight, promising he will be right back. I nod. I know exactly where he is going, and I know exactly what is going to come out of the animal when he gets there. He picks up a tablecloth on his way out, which is all the confirmation anybody would need. Old Bal's interest sharpens the instant that tablecloth moves. He gives me a courteous smile, invents an errand in the back, and walks off toward the yard without noticing that my eyes have not left him. I cast the detection spell on him. The panel gives his name as Bal and his identity as owner of Old Bal's house. Strength at 3.95, Constitution at 3.16, Agility at 3.52, Spirit at 1.9, Charm at 1.3, Abilities listed as unknown. The remarks line says that if not for his hidden injuries, his strength would be far greater than what I am reading. A country innkeeper with numbers 3 times mine and old wounds holding him back. Nothing about this man is what it says on the sign. I am not fool enough to make a scene about it either, because he could kill Rudolph and me in the time it takes to stand up from a bench. So I sit, and I keep my face pleasant, and I wait to see how far he intends to take this. Old Bal cuts through the backyard, circles around to the stable, and comes up quietly behind Rudolph, who has already bolted the door from the inside. That leaves the old man a knothole in the wall to work with, and it is enough. Through it he watches Rudolph spread the tablecloth on the ground, walk the gold donkey onto it, and call out the odd little command word, Brickle-Brit. The animal heaves and voids itself, and gold coins come down like rain. Old Bal's eyes go round, and he mutters to himself that a purse which mints coins in the blink of an eye is not bad at all, not bad at all. He goes back inside and cannot get the picture out of his head. He has no magic, and probably cannot make the donkey work for him, exactly like that other treasure he already took, but wanting has never needed a reason. Before the hour is out, he has called a hired man over and sent him off to buy a donkey that looks as close to that one as money can find. Rudolph comes back into the hall with a bundle of gold knotted in cloth. Old Bal is behind his bar again, all smiles, remarking that his little rich man appears to have found enough to cover the day's expenses. Rudolph tells him not to worry, that he will not be short a single copper, and Old Bal says he believes him in a tone with a second floor under it. Rudolph does not hear it. He is chuckling at his own good fortune while the man he just paid decides which night to rob him. I watch the whole thing with my mouth shut and everything filed away. He settles the bill, then pays for lodging, taking 2 rooms, one for him and one for me. Evening. Rudolph comes to my room to tell me he is leaving in the morning for his hometown and to ask what my plans are. If I have nowhere to go, he says, I should come with him, and whatever else may be true, I will never have to worry about money again because I saved his life. I cannot do it. The Queen of the Magic Mirror is watching me through a mirror that does not miss, and she is not going to let it go. Anyone standing near me is standing in the blast radius. I thank him and tell him I have to stay in this city to wait for someone. He nods, disappointed, then tells me the address of his hometown and says that if I ever miss him, I should come find him there, where he will make a spectacle of welcoming me. I tell him I will, and I mean more of it than I expect to. He smiles, tells me to get an early night, and goes back to his own room. I have no intention of getting an early night. The moment his door shuts, I dig out the unnamed berries and measure off roughly 100 grams. I sit with them for a while before I eat, because Old Ball has put a fresh crack of fear through my whole plan. Everything I own is support side. Detect, convert, gather information, avoid trouble. Useful in a fight, not enough to win one, and the gap between me and a wounded innkeeper is still in execution. So I take the risk the detection spell already spelled out for me, and I swallow them, and I run the conversion spell on them. Something buried inside the berries is broken down and taken into my body, and I can feel it working, quiet and unglamorous but real. Then the second half of the label arrives. My stomach turns over like a river reversing, and I am out of the room and down to the pit toilet at a dead run. I stay there, more or less, until the sun comes up. To distract myself from what is happening below, I run the day's intelligence detection right there over the pit, and I get 3 of the least dignified pieces of intelligence in my career. The first is unchanged, that the Queen of the Magic Mirror knows where I am and has sent a true night-level killer after me. The second is unchanged as well, Snow White living an easy life among the 7 dwarfs while they hunt for a way to take the scar off her face. The third is that Old Ball has already swapped Rudolph's gold donkey for a look-alike. So the greedy innkeeper from the fairy tale, the one who steals the magic food table and the gold-producing donkey, has been pouring my ale all day. I had half guessed it. Now it is signed and dated. I would like to say I sat there and made a plan, but at that particular moment I could not have cared less about any of it. Morning finds Rudolph refreshed and finds me gray-faced and barely upright, and he is alarmed enough to ask what happened to me. I tell him I probably ate something bad. He hesitates, then offers to take me to a priest, and I tell him I am fine, which I follow up by leaving the conversation at a sprint. It is nearly noon before I can convince him to go. He renews my lodging and meals with Old Ball for a full month out of his own pocket, worrying the whole time. Then he quietly presses that knotted bundle of gold into my hands, at least 50 coins in it. He tells me again that when the person I am waiting for finally comes, I should come find him, and that he will welcome me any hour of any day. I put a smile together out of spare parts and tell him I will. Those berries were not exaggerating. If you want something, you pay for it, and the invoice came in fast. Rudolph rides out leading a donkey that is not his donkey and does not know it yet. I stay behind with a burning backside and a piece of parchment, which is the Moonwolf night breathing method that Snow White's mother left behind. I put the level 2 detection spell on the parchment and let the information surface. It is a night breathing method inherited through her mother's family. Taken to its limit, it makes a man as quick as a moonwolf and adds strength under moonlight, and it can be trained all the way to Great Night. Then the second line lands. There is a flaw built into it, and anyone who trains it raw will detonate at the exact moment the Moonwolf life energy seed forms. That is a contingency the family deliberately left in the text, and during training it can be avoided. Nobles never write anything down honestly. Without the detection spell, I would have trained myself into a burst heart with perfect discipline and total confidence. My body is still wrecked, but I sit down anyway and work through the little figures inked along the parchment. The detection spell steers me around the sabotage, and I get through a first session. 3 days later, I can perform the full movement set of the Moonwolf night breathing method start to finish. When I do, my blood goes hot, my circulation accelerates, and the energy inside me burns off at a frightening rate. That is my cue. I take the last 100 grams of unnamed berries, run them through the conversion spell, and a wave of heat rolls out and circulates through my whole body. When it fades, the improvement is permanent, and I turn the detection spell on myself to read it. Name Levi, identity transmigrator and fugitive, strength at 1.22, constitution at 1.22, agility at 1.03, spirit at 1.92, charm at 1.7. Abilities now read source energy, which cannot be upgraded. Then detection spell at level 2, with 45 out of 200. Under those sick conversion spell at level 1 with 10 out of 100. and Moonwolf Night breathing method at level 1 with 1 out of 100. The remarks line repeats the warning that new abilities let ordinary items trigger special reactions in me, which may permanently improve my attributes and may also harm my body. Seeing those numbers move makes the last 3 days of misery worth the price of admission. It is still not enough. I go back to training. That night, the intelligence arrives late. The first line says Rudolph has discovered that his gold donkey was swapped and is currently drowning in suspicion. The second says Snow White is still living easy with the 7 dwarfs, who are still trying to clear her scar. The third says Haysane, the knight, the queen of the magic mirror dispatched, is about to reach this city, and his orders are to kill me by any means. Rudolph's problem will have to wait until Old Ball is handled, and until then I cannot go anywhere near him. The queen owns a mirror that shows her wherever I am, so standing next to me is a death sentence I would be signing for him. My own survival comes first, which means the city has to be behind me before Haysane is inside it. I pack in the dark and come down to the lobby the next morning with my luggage on my shoulder and ask Old Ball to put together food for the road. He glances at the bag and asks whether I'm going far. I tell him yes, and I tell him very deliberately that I have business in the city of Far Sails. He has traveled, and I watch something flicker behind his eyes as he agrees that it is quite a journey. The city of Far Sails is a free commercial port run by a merchant alliance, belonging to no kingdom. It sits 5 or 6 days out from the kingdom of Francis, which is the whole reason I picked it. I add that I have relatives there and intend to settle down, and he chuckles and congratulates me. I smile back and ask him to prepare something that travels well, and I put a few gold coins on the counter while I say it. His whole face brightens and he tells me to leave it to him. I tell him to hurry, since I am leaving shortly, and he assures me I will not be kept waiting. He is as good as his word. Half an hour later, he hands me a heavy sack of dry rations and drink, priced like a wedding feast, but honest goods otherwise. He is fattening a sheep and counting the days to slaughter, and the man already owns a donkey that manufactures money. Greed does not shrink when you feed it, it just eats faster. I run the detection spell over the food, confirm nobody has tampered with it, nod politely to Old Ball, and walk out of his inn. A few idlers detach from the street corner and drift after me. I let them, ambling along like a man with nothing on his mind, out through the city gate and into the trees. They follow carefully for a while, and then their attention slips for a moment and I am gone. They tear the woods apart looking and never find so much as a boot print. Near evening, the idlers slink back into the city and go straight to Old Ball's inn out of habit, and the lobby they open onto is far too quiet. A tall man in leather armor is waiting there with the bearing of a lion, backed by several hard-faced men, and every one of them carries the smell of blood and finished work. The idlers feel it immediately and turn to go, and 2 of those men step into the doorway behind them without a word or an expression. The lion-like man is the knight Haysane, come to run me down. Old Ball stands at his elbow with his head bowed, telling the idlers that this is a lord knight of the kingdom, and demanding to know why they have not reported on Levi yet. One of them repeats my name stupidly. Old Ball, getting anxious now, snaps that he means the man they were told to follow, and asks where he is. They spill everything at once, that they do not know, that they lost him, that he must have gone to the city of Far Sails, that he said so himself. Haysane looks at them with open contempt and gives a small signal to his knight squires, who take the whole batch of them into the back. The whipping starts, then the screaming, and it goes on a while. When the squires drag them back into the lobby, the men are opened up and half dead, and the report is that they were not lying. Haysane decides out loud that the little mouse really did run for the city of Far Sails, and that he has been a lucky little mouse so far. Since there is only one road there, his party will move fast and cut me off. Then he turns to Old Ball and orders half a month of rations for 10 men. Old Ball answers respectfully, head down, eyes doing something else entirely. Knight, I am in a dry, hidden, defensible cave with a view of Zalantu City, and the information comes up clean. Haysane and his squires have left Zalantu City for the city of Far Sails, and my danger is temporarily resolved. Detection spell used once, experience +1, current experience 48 out of 200. I let myself smile at that. I have no intention of leaving this city, because Old Ball is still holding a treasure I want. My current strength is nowhere near enough to take the magic food table off a wounded elite knight without waking him up. So the plan is simple and boring. I go to ground in the forest, I get stronger, and I come back when the arithmetic changes. I take out the parchment with the Moon Wolf Night breathing method on it, and start again. The intelligence keeps coming in while I train, Rudolph went to Old Ball's Inn to reclaim his lost gold donkey and got beaten and thrown into the street by the innkeeper's men. With no other option, he went home and took a job through his father's connections, his easy life over. Hussein never found a trace of me in the city of far sails, has concluded that Old Ball deceived him, and is getting angrier by the day. Snow White is still living her carefree life with the 7 dwarfs, who are still fussing over her scar. Poor Rudolph, ridiculous Hussein, and the 7 dwarfs, who are, I have to admit, genuinely adorable. I spend about 10 days in the forest. By the end of it, I am green from scalp to ankle, which is what happens when you eat a certain poisonous mushroom on purpose. Taken alone, it would put me in the ground. Taken with several specific plants and 1 mineral and then run through the conversion spell, it becomes an energy my body can hold. The payoff was strength plus 0.6, constitution plus 0.5, and agility plus 0.8. The detection spell laid all of that out for me in advance, including the part where I have to swallow the counteragent before the poison finishes what it starts. Fortune sits behind danger and nowhere else, so I did it. The green is only a leftover stain and will be gone by tonight. The numbers are mine forever. Better attributes make the breathing method train faster, and I can see it in the experience I am pulling per session. Practice the Moon Wolf Night breathing method once, experience plus 30, current experience 200 out of 200. I run the movement set 1 more time. Power comes surging up out of my limbs and bones like a huge wolf running under moonlight, and every bit of it drives straight at my heart. My face goes green shot through with red, and my chest fills with a pain so complete it blanks out everything else. This is the life energy seed beginning to condense, the doorway into the night rank, and once it starts, there is no way to stop and step back. Fail here and my heart bursts and I die, unless I have protective measures, which of course I do not. All I can do is keep performing the Moon Wolf Night breathing method, guide the force circulating through me, and hold its destructive edge inside a shape. For most people, that would be the hardest few minutes of their lives. For me, it is almost easy, because the 2 spell crystals sitting in my soul sea have made my mental control brutally strong, and steering this is closer to craft than to struggle. It feels long. It is not long, only a few minutes, and then a ball of energy takes shape near my heart, half illusion, flickering now and then into the outline of a moon wolf. Its 4 claws throw out countless fine threads that knit themselves into the muscle of my heart, and understanding arrives with them. This connection is how knights pull superhuman power out of an ordinary human body. My face clears, the red drains out, the green goes with it, and I have never felt this good in either of my lives. I cast the detection spell on myself, and the messages come first. I have advanced to the night rank, and my strength, constitution, agility, and spirit have all been permanently increased. The number of times I can use the detection spell and the conversion spell has gone up, and I can release the power of the life energy seed to sharply raise my agility and strength for a short window, after which I drop into a weakened state until I rest. Then the panel. Name Levi, identity transmigrator and fugitive, strength at 3.35, constitution at 3.12, agility at 3.41, spirit at 2.7, charm still at 1.7. Abilities read source energy, which cannot be upgraded, and detection spell at level 3 with 1 out of 400. Below those are conversion spell at level 1 with 90 out of 100, and Moon Wolf Night breathing method at level 3 with 1 out of 400. The remarks line notes that I permanently raised my body attributes by consuming certain items, and that breaking through to night has enhanced my strength further on top of that. I am a knight. Superhuman physical strength, in under a month. Somewhere out there are knight squires who have trained for over a decade and are still jammed against that final step, and if any of them saw this, they would lose their minds. Every one of them starts as a knight apprentice, grinds up to knight squire, and then spends years hammering at the breakthrough, 7 or 8 at the absolute best. I did it in a dozen days and change. It is still nothing next to the queen, and I know it. It is the first time since the forest that I have felt even slightly safe. I also have no illusions about who deserves the credit. 99% of this is the detection spell and the conversion spell, and about 1% is me. The detection spell built me a custom nutrition plan out of mushrooms and berries and rock, telling me precisely what to eat, in what combination, and what would kill me. The conversion spell stripped every one of those meals down and pushed the energy into my body at an efficiency no knight's secret medicine could match. That is how my basic attributes crawled up toward 3 so quickly, and once the life energy seed condensed, all of them cleared 3 without effort. Which tells me exactly where my real power lives. It is not the sword, It is the abilities I copy off fairy tale treasures, weak on arrival and stronger every time I use them. The detection spell has already climbed to level 3 in this stretch, and although it costs me more to run, it now digs far deeper than it used to. Deeper turns out to be an understatement. I tidy myself up, walk back into Zalantu City, get within range of the inn, and put a level 3 detection spell on Old Ball. The old readings were a business card. These are a dossier. He is the owner of Old Ball's house, and he was once a great knight of the kingdom of Amtir. Greed got him injured and dropped him back to knight, where he still ranks among the elite. To win back his title and his fiefdom, he took a mission from his kingdom and became the head of its secret agents inside the kingdom of Francis. He carries a spell item that masks his knight power so ordinary people cannot sense anything wrong with him. And because greed is the only consistent thing about him, he secretly swapped 2 treasures and hid them separately in a place the reading begins to name. The villainous innkeeper from the table, the gold donkey and the stick is a foreign spy master, a knight of a rival kingdom, running a network out of a tap room, robbing his own guests on the side. That is not a wall in my way, that is a lever, and I can already feel where it wants to be pushed. Everyone in this chain thinks he is the hunter. I roll my eyes up and pull his attributes. Name Ball, Identity Knight, and Kingdom of Amtir Secret Agent. Strength at 4.25, Constitution at 4.33, Agility at 4.28, Spirit at 1.5, Charm at 1.2, Abilities still unknown. The remarks line is blunt with me. Injured or not, Old Ball would find it very easy to deal with a newly advanced knight, and he holds knight combat techniques capable of immense lethality. My face does not change. I turn my head toward the road that runs to the city of Far Sails, and a rough, ugly, promising idea starts assembling itself. In the kingdom of Francis, the woman who holds the power of life and death over the realm has just finished sleeping late. Queen Cecilia Medici asks her magic mirror the question she asks every morning: which of all the women in the world is the most beautiful? The mirror tells her that she is. She is already smiling and halfway to her milk bath when something else surfaces, and after a pause she spends the magic to ask a second question: whether Hussein has killed Levi yet. The mirror answers honestly that Hussein has not, that he was misled and has gone to the city of Far Sails, and that Levi is in fact still somewhere around Zalantu City. Her chest heaves. She calls Hussein a fool, and a fool fit for the dustbin of history, and a fool taken in by a boy, and she says it several times before the heat leaves her. Then she thinks for a long while, summons a green-eyed owl, has a maid write a note and slide it into a paper tube, and sends the bird toward the city of Far Sails. I am not there to watch it. I do not have to be. It is intelligence time, and the day's 3 lines arrive on schedule. The first says the Queen of the Magic Mirror already knows Hussein was misled by me, and is sending word by owl telling him to come back to Zalantu City and kill me. The second says Rudolph's younger brother has received letters from both of his older brothers, and has sworn to help them get their treasures back. The third says Old Ball paid an enormous price to a mysterious party for a bottle of potion that can heal his injuries. His secret agent subordinate is bringing it in with the sword and flower caravan, which is camped about 6 miles outside the city, and delivery is expected tomorrow. The first 2 do nothing for me. The third one puts a frown on my face, because a wounded Old Ball is already knight-level trouble I cannot fight, and a healed Old Ball is a great knight. Against a gap that wide, every clever plan I own turns into decoration. He cannot be allowed to take delivery. I decided in the time it takes to say it, pick up my weapon, and use the dark to get out of the city. The detection spell walks me straight to the caravan's camp and points out Old Ball's man among the sleepers. With knight rank attributes under me, I move the way the breathing method promises, like a moon wolf through wet grass, and I take him away from the fires and kill him without noise. The potion goes into my coat. So does something more valuable, because the detection spell peels the secret contact protocol for Old Ball's underground line out of him before he stops being useful. A contact protocol and a stolen medicine. That is a whole campaign in 2 pockets. I get to work forging traffic on his own network, and after a slow, careful chain of handoffs, an encrypted message lands on the bulletin board in Old Bow's own inn. He is busy greeting guests and seeing them out when his eye passes over the board, and his pupils shrink to points. To anyone else it is chalk and nonsense. He reads that the Kingdom of Francis has confirmed his identity as a spy and has ordered Hussein to ride back from the city of Far Sails to kill him. Then, a few days later, an instruction arrives from an upstream contact he has never had direct dealings with. It tells him his identity is blown, that he is to kill Hussein quietly without alerting anyone, and then withdraw to his own country. The instruction helpfully includes the place and the hour where Hossein can be ambushed on the road. Old Baal does not sleep that night, thinks it over until dawn, then hires a pack of mercenaries and takes them out into the forest. I walk into town almost on his heels, and I do not go anywhere near his inn. I buy a donkey cart, take an intentionally stupid route through 3 neighborhoods, and pull up in front of a quiet house at the edge of the district. This is one of Old Baal's hidden strongholds, a place he believes only he knows about, holding everything he has skimmed and stolen over the years. Rudolph's gold donkey is here, so is his older brother's magic food table. The level 3 detection spell pulled all of it out of Old Baal himself, address included, and the same spell walks me around every trap inside without so much as a scratch. Then I am standing in front of the thing I came for. I put my hand flat on the magic food table. The source energy in my soul spreads out, circles at once, and comes home carrying weight. My soul sea starts to shake, widening and strengthening while a new spell crystal takes shape inside it. The gathering spell. I actually stand there for a second in surprise, because I was certain a magic food table would hand me some kind of food creation spell. It creates food. That is the entire premise of the object. Instead, the ability inside it gathers, which means it reaches out and collects the delicacies you want from wherever they happen to be, and delicacies is only the polite word for items. I test it on the spot. The water in the air condenses into a ball in my palm, and the system logs gathering spell experience +1. With no container, the ball collapses immediately and soaks my hand. I do not care. I look at the dirt floor, cast it again, and a scatter of white grains appears in my palm. Experience +1 again. Salt, pulled out of the soil. That changes my opinion of this ability completely. A man who can pull salt and water out of raw ground never truly starves in the wild. Stack it with the detection spell, telling me what is out there, and the conversion spell turning it into attributes, and the 3 together carry more potential than anything I have copied so far. I stop grinning long enough to be practical. I unhitch the cart donkey and swap the gold donkey into the traces. Then I load the magic food table and the big strong box of Old Baal's accumulated wealth into the bed, and drive the whole lot out of his stronghold at an unhurried pace. Dusk. Old Baal comes stumbling back to his secret house covered in his own blood, wounds all over him, face like wax. He means to grab his life's harvest, get out of the city, and run for his own country. Instead, the moment he pushes the door in, a full curtain of powder blows into his face. He throws himself sideways with a cheetah's reflex, eyes shut in the same instant, knight's longsword already clearing his belt to guard. Whatever is in the dark with him knows his habits far too well. A line of cold light drives straight at his weak point, fast and without mercy. His ears are still good and he hears exactly where it comes from, and he starts to bring the longsword around, and the movement tears open the deep wound low on his back. The pain costs him the fraction of a second he needed. The blade goes into his body and is ripped back out, and the blood comes out of him like water out of a broken pipe. He screams and demands to know who is there. He is all suspicion and terror now, and the terror wins. He starts offering me things, telling the darkness that he has treasures and will hand over every one of them if he is spared. With that treasure, he promises, I would be set for the rest of my life. He does not finish the sentence, because I cast the gathering spell on him and aim it at his blood. At level 1, the spell cannot pull anything out of a living creature. What it can do, which the detection spell taught me, is lock the body it lands on rigid for 1 second. 1 second is the entire distance between living and dying. My knight's longsword goes into his heart, and I twist it. His eyes fly open on the pain, and through the blur he finally sees my face and knows me. I say nothing to him. I pull the sword free and open his throat with the next cut. A knight's vitality is a stubborn thing, and this one climbed to great knight before greed knocked him back down, so even old and broken he does not go quietly. Then he cannot hold on anymore, and he goes down, and the blood spreads out across the floor of his own hiding place. I clean up after him, get the cart moving, and let the detection spell steer me to a ravine in the forest outside the city. It is full dark by the time I get there. I light a torch, and the light comes back at me in pairs, green and low to the ground, at least 20 sets of them. Pack wolves. There are bodies at their feet, chewed past recognition, and the detection spell names them for me. Old Baal's mercenaries and, in among them, Hossein and his knight squires. Both ends of that ambush went into the same ravine and neither came out. Every man hunting me is meat now, and for the first time since I cut Snow White's face I can breathe all the way out. The wolves feel differently about my presence. The alpha throws its head up and howls the attack, and the pack comes at me from 3 directions at once. They are, I decide out loud, in a real hurry to die. I am a knight now. My body is being rebuilt in a direction that has stopped being human, and I have 3 spells stacked behind that. These animals look terrifying, and are nothing, not even the lowest grade of magical beast, just beasts with good teeth. A quarter of an hour later, more than 10 of them are on the ground, and the alpha is leading what is left of the pack away with their tails tucked. I do not have a single wound on me. I have some dust. I check Hassane's body for anything worth taking and find it already picked clean, because old Ball got there first and greed never sleeps. So I go back to the cart to leave, and then I look down at all those dead wolves and have a much better idea. I cast the gathering spell over the corpses, and the fur, the lean meat, and the fat separate themselves out of a dozen animals with perfect precision. The hides come off with no grease left on them at all, which makes them ideal bedding. The lean meat arrives in tidy rectangles, each block weighing a pound. I take 30 pieces, stack them on the cart, run the detection spell once to pick a safe route, and drive off swaying down the track. Behind me, the wolves that ran circle back and start eating what I left them. The cave I find is filthy and full of some animals' droppings, and one sweep of the gathering spell scours it clean. I am beginning to love this spell. I find a tree next and lay the gathering spell over the trunk, and it hands me hundreds of pieces of standard firewood, enough for 10 nights instead of 1. I build a rough stove, get a fire going, set out the iron pot, render the wolf fat in it, cut the meat into strips and fry them. Plain fried wolf is hard to get down, so I sweep the area with the detection spell and then gather pure salt and a spicy pollen out of the surroundings. The pollen carries a mild numbing toxin, but my knight-rank constitution shrugs at it, so I season with a free hand. Soon the whole cave smells like a roadhouse. Roast meat alone still is not enough for me. I hunt again with the detection spell and find leaves that aid digestion and taste sweet and bitter at once. I gather those too, boil a pot of water, steep them, and shape a rough wooden cup out of a piece of firewood. The temperature drops hard once the sun is gone, and the cold comes in through the mouth of the cave. I sit by the fire eating spicy roast wolf and drinking hot sweet bitter leaf water, and the comfort of it is difficult to describe. Compared to the way I was surviving out here a few weeks ago, this almost counts as living. Everything I swallow gets broken down by the conversion spell and turns into threads of heat moving through my body. It adds to my constitution in amounts too small to see and too steady to ignore. I put away several pounds of wolf meat and several liters of leaf water before I finally feel full. By then it is midnight and the sky opens. Rain comes down in sheets and lightning walks across the ridgeline, and the cold blows in with the wet until I feel it on my neck. I bring the gold donkey and the magic food table inside with me. And no, I did not use the magic food table to conjure a banquet instead of frying wolf strips. The thing runs on an incantation and I do not know the incantation. So for now the table is expensive furniture and I cook for myself. There is a little work left before sleep. I stay inside and use the gathering spell to pull a pile of wood and debris together, stack it across the cave mouth, and leave a hole for air. Then I take stones that have been sitting red in the fire, dig a shallow pit, bed them in it, cover them over with sand and soil, and spread a wolf hide on top. That is my bed. When I lie down on it, the heat comes up through the earth and the fur gives under me. The comfort runs from my scalp to my heels, and my eyelids start to close on their own. Out here, that is exactly when men die. So I cast the detection spell one more time, read nothing dangerous anywhere nearby, and only then let myself go under. I sleep like a rich man. Dawn comes into the cave like honey through a slot, spilling across dark green moss and wet rock. The air is full of earth and pine needles and some old resin smell I cannot name. Outside, thin mist winds between ancient trees so thick that 10 men could not link arms around one of them. And there are golden patterns crawling in the bark like runes still in motion. Vines hang down out of the canopy with their leaf edges faintly glowing, swaying in the morning wind as though they are whispering to each other. My mental power has come all the way back overnight. I gather clean water, use the detection spell to find a branch good for cleaning the teeth, and take enough of them in one sweep to last half a year without stepping outside. Then I get petty with it. I turn the gathering spell on myself and pull the dust and dried mud off my skin, and it even draws the wax from my ears and rolls it into a small dark pellet. I have never felt cleaner. Sitting there with a cup of steaming water in my hands, an idea arrives, and I cast the gathering spell on the cup. What I gather this time is the heat itself. It works. The warmth scatters out of my hands and the boiling water turns comfortable in an instant. I drink it and eat toasted soft bread, then pack the iron pot and the wolf meat and the hides onto the cart. I drive out behind the gold donkey with the whole load rocking, heading for Rudolph's hometown. In the royal city of the Kingdom of Francis, in the palace, Queen Cecilia Medici comes back to her bedchamber from her milk bath. Her owl has returned from carrying orders to High Seine, so all that remains is to wait for the night to bring her Levi's head. The boy is a cunning little mouse, she thinks, and cunning is meaningless against a woman who sees everything. So however hard he runs, the ending is already written. She dismisses the subject entirely, goes to stand before the magic mirror, spends the magic, and asks who is the most beautiful woman in the world. The mirror tells her that she is, and her face settles into satisfaction. Below the palace, the milk she finished bathing in is running out through a drainage hole. A crowd is waiting for it, ragged and hollow-cheeked, holding out every container they own to catch the filthy stuff before it hits the ground. It will be their treasured rations for the next few days. Since the queen took power in the kingdom, the number of commoners in the capital who have fallen into destitution has climbed steeply. She only wants to know whether she is beautiful. Nothing else has ever reached her. Over the last ridge, the valley opens and a village lies scattered across it. Low wooden houses and stone buildings, cooking smoke standing up out of the chimneys, thin crops in the fields. The detection spell confirms it. Rudolph's hometown, White Stone Village. At the edge of the grass where the woods begin, an old man is grazing a flock. He wears coarse linen with a wool coat and a sheepskin hat, and he has pale blue eyes and a face full of stubble and hard years. I put the level 3 detection spell on him and get more than I bargained for. The reading names him the shepherd of Whitestone Village and Rudolph's father. It says he carries an ancient bloodline, that he has abilities ordinary people do not, and that he can speak to goats with his mind. Right village, right family. I drive the cart over and greet him as a wise elder. He looks me over and calls me an outlander, which is fair. I tell him I would like to ask about someone. On the road I met a friend named Rudolph who bought me a fine dinner and earned my gratitude. I add that since I was passing his village, I wanted to call on him and if possible return something of his. That moves the old man, and he asks which Rudolph I mean. I ask him back whether Whitestone Village has several. Then I add that my Rudolph told me he had been away from home for years and only recently came back, and I ask whether anyone's son has just returned. He says of course there is, and he studies my face while he remembers what his second boy told him after coming home. Then he grins and tells me the man I am describing is his son. I let myself look startled, and then I let a very warm smile arrive, and I greet him properly and ask whether I might see Rudolph since I have something to give back. The shepherd hesitates and says that is a bit of a problem, because Rudolph has already gone to take work at the workshop in town. Of course he has. In the fairy tale, the shepherd's second son comes home, finds the gold donkey swapped for a common animal, and takes a job to keep himself fed. I simply did not expect a man that rich a month ago to be clocking in this fast. The old man asks what he should call me, and I tell him Levi, and that Levi is enough. The name matches whatever Rudolph told him, and whatever doubt was left in him goes out. He offers me a bed for the night, says he will send a messenger with word, and thinks that if all goes well, Rudolph will be back tomorrow. I bow a little and tell him I will trouble him, and he laughs and takes me home. A shepherd lives better than the average commoner, so home is 3 thatched cottages and a sheep pen. The smell is dreadful, although in fairness the towns are barely better, and the villages are worse. I swallow the urge to be sick and move into a room with an odor I could not identify at gunpoint. The straw mattress and everything near it is crawling with lice. I use the gathering spell several times and pull out a heap of lice and assorted insects, which improves the room. Slightly. The smell is not going anywhere. This is the moment I miss my camper van from my old life with an intensity that borders on grief. Air conditioning, sealed windows, a bed I chose. Go anywhere, sleep anywhere, and never once negotiate with livestock about it. In a world where a bath is a rumor, that is a luxury wish and I know it. The night is a long, itching ordeal. In the morning the shepherd, who is hospitable to a fault, slaughters a lamb on my account and puts roasted lamb chops and a bowl of porridge in front of me for breakfast. I eat well, then shut myself in a room and run my breathing method. By noon Rudolph has gotten the message and come tearing back from town. He spots me from a distance and shouts that he knew it was me and that it is wonderful to see me. I tell him not to celebrate yet. He stops, confused. So I bring the gold donkey around and tell him to have a look at what I have got. He stares at it and says this is the animal his teacher gave him, and asks how it ended up in my hands. I tell him that, to be exact, it ended up in the hands of the innkeeper we stayed with, who quietly swapped his donkey for another. He asks me how I could possibly know that. I let the question sit for a moment before I answer it. I tell him that for reasons I cannot fully explain, I have certain unusual abilities, and that they let me learn things other people cannot easily find out. Then I ask him straight whether he believes me. I say it looking at both of them, Rudolph and his father. The two of them glance at each other and start to smile. Rudolph tells me he believes me, that his own family has some special abilities of their own, and that he understands perfectly why I would be careful about admitting it. Then he volunteers, entirely unprompted, that his family can talk to goats. I ask him whether he means that literally. He assures me he does, calls it a simple little gift, and steers us right back to the donkey, asking how on earth I got it back. I tell him it was no trouble at all, that my ability let me wait until the innkeeper was away, find the place where he had hidden the animal, and walk it out. Rudolph says I have astonished him, that I saved his life, and then recovered his treasure on top of it, and he asks how he could ever repay me. There are actual tears in his eyes. I tell him with a small smile that he has already paid me plenty, which happens to be true. I got the priceless thing off that donkey the first time I touched it. The gold donkey is a wonderful object, and objects can be stolen, sold, swapped in a stable at night. The wizardry inside it is already sitting in my soul sea, weak today and stronger with every use, and that is the part nobody can lift out of my pocket. Handing the animal back to the man who owns it costs me nothing and buys me a friend with a wizard's bloodline. He thanks me several more times, and I tell him he is being too generous. Then something occurs to him, and his face falls, and he says it is a pity. He has an older brother who stayed at that same inn, and the treasure that brother's teacher gave him was stolen by the same innkeeper. The stolen treasure was a table, he tells me, and he says it would have been wonderful if I had known and carried that off as well. He learned all of this from the brother who is also working in the town. After he came home, I go to the cart, lift out an antique-looking table, and ask him whether it might be this one. I add that I saw it sitting in the same place as the donkey and picked it up while I was there. Rudolph stares. He runs his hand over the wood, very gently, and says he can feel that it is unusual, but that to be certain of the owner he would need to bring his brother here. I ask him what exactly we are waiting for. He tells me to wait for him, gets back on the horse he rode in on, and goes. Under 2 hours later, he is back with a young man who looks so much like him the resemblance is almost funny. He introduces his older brother, Phil, and then tells Phil that this is his best friend Levi, the man who saved his life and brought back their lost treasure. Phil gives me a polite nod and greets me by name. I nod back and start to ask him whether he would like to look the table over and confirm it is his. He tells me there is no need to look, that he already knows. Then he walks up to the table, chants something in a language I cannot follow, and finishes by telling the little table to spread itself out. The bare wood fills. There are mutton chops stewed with raisins and onions, quail glazed in honey, and chicken stewed with almonds. There is marinated pork roasted with cloves and cinnamon and sugar, wild boar ribs, swan cooked with saffron and peaches, moose stuffed with blue cheese, and trout wrapped in crushed almonds. Around them are carrots and almond milk, buttered peas, and a raisin salad. There is ale and there is wine, and there is white bread so soft and pale it belongs on an altar. Phil gestures the three of us in, his brother, his father, and me. The old shepherd's face comes apart. When his eldest son first came home, the boy talked about a table that produced endless food. Then the table sat there empty and produced nothing, and the shepherd decided his son had lied to him. Now the same table is buried under a nobleman's banquet in his own yard. His son never lied to him once. The corners of his mouth twitch up, and he picks up a piece of the white bread and takes a careful bite. It is soft and sweet enough that he closes his eyes over it. That is my signal to stop pretending to be polite. I take a rib of roasted wild boar and go at it in large bites. Since the night breakthrough, my physical condition has changed considerably, and my digestion has started sliding towards something no longer human, which means I simply need far more fuel than an ordinary man. On top of that, I still have the conversion spell I copied off the gold donkey, turning food into raw material for my attributes. With ordinary food, the conversion rate is so low it is nearly pointless for me now. But nearly pointless is not the same as nothing, and small amounts stack. Between the body and the spell, my appetite runs a full tier above a normal person's. It is also, without competition, the best meal I have eaten since I arrived in this world. The astonishing part is that every dish refills itself the instant it is eaten. Somewhere else in the world, though, in a palace kitchen, or at some great noble's banquet, the matching dish quietly vanishes, and nobody ever works out why. That is the actual secret of the magic food table. Phil and Rudolph start out watching me eat with fond smiles. Somewhere around my fourth pass at the boar, with my stomach showing no sign of change at all, those smiles stiffen. Phil draws his brother aside and says the man has done a great deal for them and asks how they are supposed to repay him. Rudolph says that is exactly the problem he has been chewing on. Phil points out that I clearly hold magic power the way they do, but that I am where they were before they met their teacher, running on instinct, with no method under it. Rudolph asks what he is getting at. Phil says they should teach me a meditation method, raise my mental power, and give me a real shot at becoming a wizard, which is the same thing as giving me a future. Rudolph frowns and reminds him that without their teacher's permission he cannot pass on anything the teacher taught them, because wizard knowledge is priceless. They have reason to be careful with it. Years ago, the three brothers were thrown out of this house because of a lying goat that turned their father's temper on them. It was their bloodline that got them noticed by the three sages of the forest. The three sages present themselves as a carpenter, a tailor, and a wood turner. What they actually are is alchemists, each with a specialty of their own, and the three brothers were each taken as a student by one of them. They have spent the years since learning their master's trades while meditating and building mental power. Because they have not been at it long and their bloodline is thin, all three are still wizard apprentices rather than proper wizards, capable of a handful of parlor tricks. Phil tells his brother not to worry because he has no intention of handing over anything their teacher taught them. He came into a basic meditation method separately, from outside that line, and since it was never his teacher's knowledge, he may do with it as he pleases. Rudolph asks him what he means to do with it. Phil says he intends to use it as a trade. Rudolph lights up and says it is a good idea, that they can help me build my own power, and that he believes I will accept a gift like that. Then he adds that a meditation method alone does not feel like enough sincerity for what I have done. Phil asks him what he wants to do instead, and whether he means to hand me a fortune. Rudolph says that although I have never said so, he does not think I care much for fortunes, and that I strike him as a man who likes to wander and see new country. Phil says the world is not that safe for wandering. Inside the settled human regions, things stay relatively clean, but a short distance past the edge of civilization, the monsters breed like weeds and take root in every place that will hold them. Goblins alone multiply at a rate comparable to rats, and goblins are only the beginning of what is out there. Rudolph's eyes go bright, and he tells his brother he knows exactly what gift they should give. Phil asks what it is. Rudolph says the two of them should join forces and build me an alchemy carriage. Phil, with complete self-awareness, points out that their abilities are nowhere near that, because they are only wizard apprentices. Rudolph agrees that a true alchemy carriage is beyond them, but insists that a carriage carrying basic alchemy runes for sturdy, smooth, and silencing should be well within reach. Phil says nothing for a while, turning the plan over, and then he nods and says they can try. Phil sets it out for me carefully. He tells me to close my eyes and meditate by the method he is teaching, and to use my mental power to meditate on the will runes inside my soul sea. He says an ordinary person can hold 7 will runes at once at the absolute limit, and that anyone who wants to walk the wizard's path has to reach at least 8. 8 is only the doorway though, and the more will runes a person holds on the first attempt the better, with 12 counting as excellent aptitude among wizards. Every additional rune raises mental power accordingly. The standard for a first-rank wizard apprentice, he says, is holding 12 will rune characters clearly. Once a man reaches first rank, he begins to sense energy, the many kinds of it that fill all space, and he can pick his direction of advancement from whichever type he senses best. I run through his instructions in my head, settle my mind, and begin meditating on the basic meditation method he gave me. Complex runes surface in my soul sea one after another, and the whole process feels easy in a way I do not think it is supposed to. 5, 8, 9, 10, 12. 12 will runes stand there clean and stable, and I am not straining at all. When the 12th condenses, something like a current passes through my soul, and my soul power comes up hard behind it. My spirit had been sitting at 2.7, better than an ordinary man and nothing to write home about. After the 12 runes settle, it reads 3.6. First rank wizard apprentice. The bottom rung of the apprentice ladder, and I feel like a different animal. More than that, the outside world has started talking to me, because I can feel the energy factors moving through the air around me. The basic meditation method says a first-rank wizard apprentice can use mental power to draw in those external energy factors and fuse them into his own mana. Mana is what a wizard spends to cast. I have been casting all along, of course. Now that I have mana of my own to compare against, the detection spell tells me something ugly. Every spell I cast before this was drawn straight out of my body's life energy, and keeping that up would have aged me out early or killed me outright. I did not know that. I have been paying for months in a currency I did not know I was spending, and nobody sent me a statement. I will not be reckless with it again. With mana in me, the equation changes completely, because casting no longer eats my life, so I sit down immediately and get to work condensing it. It takes a long while. In the end, I hold 36 drops. Testing tells me what that buys, and the numbers are worth knowing. 36 drops will run the level 3 detection spell 12 times back to back, or the level 2 gathering spell 18 times. The gathering spell climbed to level 2 over this stretch of constant use, and it now covers a wider area, pulls more material, and collects a greater variety of things in a single cast. The conversion spell is my weakest at level 1, and 36 drops will cast it 20 times. Different spells at different levels cost different amounts, which is a lesson I would rather learn on a full tank than an empty one. There is a recovery rate as well. In a meditative state, I regain 12 drops of mana every hour, so 3 hours takes me from empty to full. Out of meditation, going about my business, the detection spell measures the recovery at 2 drops an hour, which means a full refill takes 18 hours. I keep meditating, and it stops being easy. The first 12 will runes came out of me in under an hour and made me a first-rank wizard apprentice, but pushing towards second rank turns into grinding work. Each new will rune takes about an hour on its own, and 12 solid hours of sitting in the dark only gets the count to 24. Every rune I condense pushes my spirit up by roughly 0.1, so by that arithmetic 24 runes should have carried me from 3.6 to 4.8. The 24th is a threshold instead. When it locks into place, the current running through me comes harder than anything before it, and my spirit jumps straight to 7.2. After that, I spend a stretch pushing my mana up to 108 drops, and when I test my spells, the numbers have shifted under me. The level 3 detection spell used to cost 3 drops and now costs 2, and my other 2 spells have come down in the same proportion. Higher spirit means cheaper casting, which is the kind of math I can live with. This is second-rank wizard apprentice territory, the same rung Phil and Rudolph are standing on after years of patient work. It took me a handful of days. I am not going to pretend that is fair. It is not, and I will take it anyway. Something about the pace is wrong though, and one pass of the detection spell tells me why. My soul sea was opened ahead of schedule and it already holds 3 spell crystals. Climbing from 3rd rank wizard apprentice to 1st circle wizard needs the spirit threshold met and, more importantly, 1 spell permanently solidified inside the soul sea. A 2nd circle wizard carries 2 spell crystals and a 3rd circle wizard carries 4. With 3 of them I sit above the one and below the other, except my spirit is nowhere near either. My sea got hauled up to a level my mind has not earned, and until my spirit catches up, meditating is like walking across flat ground. So I keep going, and the runes start fighting back. The 25th takes over an hour, the 26th close to 2, the 27th longer still. By the time the 48th will rune settles, I have burned 5 days and nights straight, 120 hours of it. My spirit has climbed to 9.6, and my mana has gone from 108 drops to 432. That makes me a 3rd rank wizard apprentice with room still left over. The basic meditation method holds 6 more will runes meant to be condensed after the 3rd rank, and those 6 cost me another 7 days by themselves. When all 54 will runes are flickering in my soul sea, my spirit stops quietly at 13.2, which is the ceiling, and my mana settles at 1,296 drops. The basic meditation method says this is where a person should start thinking about breaking through to 1st circle wizard. It does not say how. I aim the level 3 detection spell at the method itself, and get nothing on that subject, which is fair, since it is a basic method being read by a level 3 spell. 2 limits stacked on top of each other, and me wedged between them. So I take the question to Rudolph and Phil. When they hear how far I have come, Phil calls on his god and says out loud that he cannot believe it and demands to know how I did it. I tell them I am not sure myself and that I simply kept meditating, which is close enough to true that my face does not have to work at it. Rudolph produces a stone and tells me to put my mental power into it, and when I do, the thing lights up like a lamp on a table. The 2 of them look at each other. Once I pull back and the glow dies, they stay quiet a long while. Then Rudolph says there is no arguing with it, that I am already a 3rd rank wizard apprentice. Phil adds that it is a shame their teacher never laid eyes on me, because they would have taken me as a disciple on the spot. I shrug and agree that it is a shame, and privately I am doing arithmetic on that idea. If the 3 sages of the forest had taken me in, what exactly would they have handed me at the end of an apprenticeship? A table, a donkey, a stick? I catch myself looking forward to the thought more than I should. Then Phil announces he has worked out why my spirit is climbing so fast, and for one bad second my stomach goes tight, because I think he has found my secret. He is not. Phil tells me my body must carry the bloodline of some ancient, great existence at a very high concentration, either an atavism or something stranger. He says that until I hit my ceiling, the wizard's road will stay smooth under my feet. Then he passes on what his teacher told him, which is that whatever a bloodline gives you, it also takes back. The more dazzling the start, the more miserable the finish, because the same blood that carried me up becomes the wall I stop at. I say I see, and I do not believe a word of it. Nothing in my blood is doing this. It is the cheat I brought through with me when I closed my eyes in one world and opened them in this one. Then I ask them both, straight out, how a person breaks through to First Circle Wizard. They look at me with envy sitting plain on their faces and both shake their heads, because they have no idea either. I leave with nothing to show for the conversation. Behind me, the two brothers throw themselves at the alchemy carriage they are building for me, like men who have just been given something to prove. Back in my sour-smelling little room, I do not stop working. If meditation cannot raise my spirit any further, then I raise my spells instead. With 1,296 drops of mana and a level 3 detection spell that costs 2, I can cast 648 times without pausing for breath. A few casts in a row used to leave me hollowed out, so I stand there and cast, over and over, watching the experience tick up a point at a time. It goes from 32 out of 400 to 320, and finally to 400 out of 400. The panel tells me the detection spell has met the standard for upgrading and can be raised. I take it. The crystal structure of the detection spell blurs inside my soul sea, comes apart, and reassembles into something deeper and far more complicated, and the spell stands at level 4. Then the new structure starts putting out a strange ripple that spreads across the whole sea. Everything in me turns over at once. My face goes stiff, and for a moment, I cannot move at all. What comes out of me next is a wave of mental power strong enough to press on the air, my spirit shoving past the 15 mark and crossing an entire energy level. The upgraded spell answers for me, at a cost of 200 drops a cast, which is not the same species of expense as the level 3 version. It is worth every drop of it. The reading tells me that once the detection spell reached level 4, it met the formal standard of a First Circle spell. A First Circle spell crystal vibrating inside the soul sea satisfies both conditions for becoming a First Circle wizard, so I came in through the side door without knocking. It goes further than that. If I raise either of my other 2 spell crystals to First Circle standard, my spirit will climb fast on its own. If I then push one of those 2 First Circle crystals to Second Circle standard while my spirit meets the minimum for a Second Circle wizard, that door opens too. So there is a ladder after all, and for once I can see the rungs. My panel comes up when I reach for it. Levi, Identity Transmigrator, Fugitive, First Circle Wizard, Knight, Strength 3.35, Constitution 3.12, Agility 3.41, Spirit a clean 15, Charm 1.7, and Mana at 796 drops out of 5,000. Under abilities I have Source Energy, which cannot be upgraded, and the Detection spell at level 4 with 1 point of experience out of 800. The Conversion spell sits at level 1 with 98 out of 100, and the Gathering spell at level 2 with 8 out of 200. Last is the Moon Wolf Knight Breathing Method at level 3, 1 point out of 400. The remarks line says I know the ladder to Second Circle Wizard, and that my situation is not safe. That last line puts the shape of a woman in my head, and I catch myself wondering whether being a First Circle Wizard qualifies me to put the queen over my knee. Then I get back to work. I dig out the potion I took off Old Ball's agent, the bottle I did not dare drink when my detection spell was only level 3, and the reading came back full of holes. Level 4 should do better, and it does. The bottle is a low-grade magic potion, thrown together without much care by a witch out of the lettuce garden. It heals serious injury by burning the drinker's vitality while raising the drinker's constitution. Then the reading adds a second half. If I drink the potion together with a liquid made from crushed starmoon grass, dire wolfheart blood, and gray snake gall, the drain on my life force drops sharply. The constitution gain climbs higher, and the ingredient list runs on past those 3. It gives me the recipe line by line after that. I already pushed my constitution to night level with the conversion spell and the Moon Wolf Knight breathing method. I can walk in and out of a pack of dire wolves without much trouble. None of that is enough for a man being hunted by a nearly omniscient queen of the magic mirror. So I take the deal, side effects included. I do not swallow it in the room like an idiot, either. I walk out of Whitestone Village into the wild and spend a full day running the Gathering spell down that list. with the detection spell pointing the way. None of the ingredients turn out to be rare. What I end up with is a red and green liquid that looks like something scraped off a battlefield. Several of the components were insects, and their corpses went in whole. Not my favorite meal. I hold my breath, tip the potion and the crushed liquid back together, and swallow. The conversion spell wakes up inside me on its own. My skin goes blue, then red, then blue again, and underneath, where nothing can be seen, my flesh and blood start rearranging themselves. The pressure builds until I feel like a balloon at the edge of bursting. So I start running the Moonwolf Night breathing method, cycle after cycle after cycle. It goes from daylight into full dark before the last of the potion is absorbed, and my body finishes remaking itself. What follows is hunger of a kind I have never had in either life. My vision goes red at the edges with it. I go into the forest, and between the detection spell, the gathering spell, and a body that is now frankly monstrous, finding food takes no effort at all. I do not wait to roast anything, and it is less barbaric than it sounds, because the gathering spell lets me pull clean blood and clean cuts of meat straight out of a carcass. So I eat raw without eating fur. The taste is nothing to speak of, but nothing is going to make me sick, which is the only part I care about. An hour and change later, I finish the least dignified meal of my life, and finally have the presence of mind to turn the detection spell on myself. Levi, Identity Transmigrator, Fugitive, First Circle Wizard, and now Great Knight. Strength 5.35, Constitution 5.02, and Agility 5.59. Spirit reads 15.1, Charm crawls up to 1.8, and Mana is down to 258 drops out of 5,000. Abilities read the same on paper, with Source Energy still unupgradable, the Detection spell at level 4, and the Conversion spell at level 1. The Gathering spell holds at level 2, and the Moonwolf Night breathing method sits at level 3 with 15 points of experience out of 400. The remarks line still tells me I know the ladder to Second Circle Wizard, and that my situation is not safe. The panel has a real talent for ending on a sour note. Strength, Constitution, and Agility all sit at 5 times what an ordinary person carries, which makes me something closer to a vehicle than a man. Denser bones, stronger muscle, faster nerves. In the industrial world I came from, I would have been the thing governments build in a locked building and call a super soldier. Physically, I am standing at Great Knight level now. With no weapon at all, I could put 100 men on the ground inside a few minutes, on muscle alone. I think I could dodge a bullet. The world has gone slow around me, and it has not slowed at all. I have simply gotten faster. It takes me a long time to stop overreaching for things and half-tearing doors out of their frames. Once the adjustment settles, some of the weight comes off my chest. Strength is strength, and more of it is never the wrong answer in a world where a mirror can tell a queen exactly where I sleep. Night falls, and I run the daily intelligence detection. The first item tells me the Queen of the Magic Mirror still does not know that Knight Hasain is dead. The second says the 7 dwarfs tried to restore Snow White's face, failed at it, and are taking the failure badly. The third says the potion I drank came from the Witch of the Lettuce Garden, who keeps her adopted daughter in a tower with no door so that nobody else can reach her. The fourth says one of Old Baal's standing missions was finding the long-missing son of the king of the kingdom of Amtir. With Baal suddenly dead, the king is furious, and increasingly convinced his son's disappearance ties back to the Queen of the Magic Mirror. Since the detection spell crossed into First Circle territory, this daily read has gotten a great deal more useful. The first item is the one that moves my feet. The Queen does not know yet, and she will, and when she does, staying under Rudolph's roof stops being my problem and becomes his family's. I decide to say my goodbyes in the morning. The second item is worth nothing to me. The third sounds exactly like a fairy tale I half remember and comes with no location attached, which is a genuine shame. The fourth I read once and set down. Decision made, I do not sit on my hands. There is experience to farm and only one spell worth farming it with. Because of the other two, one is not cost effective and the other simply does not fit the job. So the gathering spell it is. I stand in that room and gather the fleas out of the floorboards, the dust out of my shoes, the salt out of the soil, the moisture out of the air. The level climbs with the repetition, the way it always does. Before dawn, after one more meditation to top off my mana, I cast it again, and the last point lands. The gathering spell reaches level 3, one step short of First Circle standard. For every 60 drops of mana, it now sweeps everything solid inside 10 meters, with no effect on living creatures, though it does drag at them enough to slow them down. And my soul seed does the thing it did before, the spells ringing against each other in resonance, and the strength of the sea rises again. If I could get my hands on a higher meditation method, my spirit would climb far faster, and I have no idea where such a thing is sold. The next intelligence detection can carry that question for me. What I can look at right now is the Moon Wolf Night breathing method, so I put the level 4 detection spell on it. The reading says the method tops out at Great Night and that the life energy seed it condenses feeds strength and agility. It also says the 1st, 6th, 7th, and 11th movements can be adjusted to change the breathing frequency. With an ointment of silver moongrass, gray flower, and monkey head mushroom applied at the same time, the method itself can be raised, carrying a person as far as peak Great Night. The advanced version, it says, is built on a magical beast called the Silver Moon Wolf. Then it charges me a point of experience and notes that I am at 3 out of 800. The level 4 detection spell keeps earning its keep. The catch is that the potion already dragged me to Great Night, so a method promising to take me there is a ladder to a floor I am already standing on. I file it away and move on. I have not slept all night, and I have never felt better in my life. Morning comes to Whitestone Village with the mist still unbroken, and Rudolph hammers on my door with news. The alchemy carriage he and Phil built for me is finished, which is the smaller half of it. The larger half is that their younger brother Mark has finished his apprenticeship under his master, the woodturner, one of the 3 sages of the forest. Mark got letters from both older brothers, and since he is grateful to me for getting their treasures back, he has come home hoping to meet me. I want to meet him too, and not for his conversation. The carriage can wait. What I came for is Mark's little stick, and before anyone gets clever about that, I do not mean the one he was born with. Rudolph walks me over. Mark has the family face, the kind of resemblance a stranger clocks in one glance, with freckles as the only thing separating him from his brothers. I put the detection spell on him out of habit. It tells me Mark has better wizard talent than either older brother, and that he stands at 3rd rank wizard apprentice, 1 step from a true first circle wizard. It says his teacher thinks highly enough of him to have handed him a magic stick enchanted with wizard's hand for self-defense. The stick lives in a pocket at his waist, comes out on an incantation, and beats whoever the owner wants beaten. My experience ticks over to 4 out of 800. My eyes go to that pocket, and Mark catches it happening. He tells Rudolph that his brother was right about me, that I have real talent, since I spotted at a single glance that the pocket his teacher gave him is not an ordinary pocket. I take a beat and ask whether I might look at it. He tells me there is nothing to ask about, since a friend of his brother is a friend of his. He adds that a man who handed back his family's treasures without being asked has already earned his deepest goodwill. Then he unties the pocket and tosses it over, grinning the whole time. I thank him. My hand closes on the pocket and finds the stick inside, and the source energy in my soul pours down into it and comes straight back where it started. A new spell crystal takes shape in my soul sea. Wizard's Hand at level 1, mana spent to form an invisible hand that can lift no more than 100 pounds. My soul sea bucks hard under the addition, and its strength goes up by a margin I can feel. A 3rd circle wizard needs the spirit and 4 spell crystal structures in the soul. If my spirit ever meets that bar, and among my 4 crystals 1 stands at 1st circle, 2 at 2nd circle, and 1 at 3rd circle, the 3rd circle door opens for me. Real wizards command a long list of spells and carry the knowledge sitting under them, which is not a description of me by any measure. I have 4 spells and no education whatsoever. I have been walking this road for less than a month, and I refuse to be embarrassed about the state of it. I got what I came for, so I hand the stick back without a flicker of reluctance. Mark is thrown by that, and says I must know how precious the thing is, and asks whether I am really returning it without so much as another look. I tell him there is no need, that beautiful things do not have to be owned, and that quietly appreciating a thing is its own kind of happiness. All that inspirational garbage I absorbed in my last life finally pays a dividend. Mark's whole expression changes on the spot. Rudolph tells his brother that this is exactly what he meant, that I am a true gentleman, and Mark agrees with feeling, saying he sees the qualities of a gentleman in me. Being looked at that way is worse than being insulted, and I have to sit there and take it. Then Mark offers to show me what the stick can do, and when I ask him how, he tells me to come along. He and Rudolph take me into the forest outside the village. Once there is nobody in sight, Mark chants and orders the stick out of the pocket. A short rod flashing with red light shoots free, hangs in the air a moment, then flies where he points. Every full-grown tree in its path snaps in half. It travels more than 100 meters, dropping trunks the whole way, and then, moving on nothing but Mark's thought, it taps the ground and blows a crater into it. He calls it back into the pocket, and the stick returns to his waist like a trained bird. Rudolph's face changes and so does mine. That thing would put a great knight on the ground without letting him swing once, and now I understand exactly why the innkeeper in the fairy tale begged for mercy. Nobody takes a beating like that and stays standing. I would put the stick at first circle spell power at minimum, possibly higher. What keeps me from envying it is that I have already copied Wizard's Hand, and while my version starts weaker, it has room to grow and it bends in far more directions. My hand does not need to hold a stick to hurt somebody. I tell the brothers the stick is remarkable and that with it their treasures are safe now, and then I tell them it is time for me to leave. Rudolph is caught off guard and starts talking me out of it, saying there is food and drink here and no reason to rush off. So I explain that I have offended someone very powerful and that if I stay too long that person will take it out on them. Rudolph hears this and immediately agrees that I should leave quickly, with no hesitation at all. So much for our friendship. Even Mark looks embarrassed for him and asks his brother how he can possibly be like that, and Rudolph catches up with his own tongue and apologizes with his head down. Mark says the least they can do is let me finish breakfast first. Rudolph brightens and says that is a good point, because now that the alchemy carriage is done, they can load me up with food to eat on the road. Mark goes quiet for a second, then admits that this actually makes sense. I have nothing at all to add. They are joking, I am fairly sure, and I intend to keep telling myself that. The silence is getting awkward when Phil drives the carriage around the corner. It looks like the painted traveling wagons I used to see in my old life. One horse in the traces. The roof arches over like a canopy, so the rain runs off and the inside feels larger than it is. There are patterns painted along the sides and across the underside, and at a glance they are abstract suns and moons and flowers. The detection spell says they are alchemy runes with real function baked into every line. This is not a wagon. This is an alchemy carriage. The body is done in a bright gold and crimson lacquer, louder than anything I would have picked, and I have to admit it looks good. The wheels are oversized to handle bad ground, at the cost of any real speed. There are doors front and back, and the rear one comes with a retractable staircase and its own door at the top of it. Phil opens the back and shows me the inside. The space is small and used well. There is a sleeping area built out of beds that fold away, and an open area for whatever else I want to carry. Windows down both sides handle light and air, so the cabin never feels closed in, and the walls and corners carry layered racks for clothes and daily necessities. They have even built me several folding tables and chairs. It is a thoughtful piece of work from two men who owed me nothing at all. Phil talks me through the reins and I take it out myself, and the thing does not bump. Carriages in this era have no springs, so a long day on one is a beating the road administers to your spine, one vertebra at a time. This one glides over ruts that should have thrown me off the bench. That is the runes doing the work, and nothing else. There is a hub built into the carriage somewhere, and Phil tells me that if I feed enough magic power into it, the effects hold for 5 days. A full charge does not take much, and the entire pool of a first-rank wizard apprentice would cover it, which for a first-circle wizard is a rounding error. I am satisfied with all of it, and with the spells I carry, traveling rough is going to be far more comfortable than it has any right to be. The one weakness is that the whole thing is mostly wood, so it will not stop anything determined. Phil says the runes include a sturdiness effect. Out in the wild at night, I do not think sturdy is going to cut it. I am also not going to say that to 2 wizard apprentices who built me a home on wheels for free. The safety problem is mine to solve. If I ever get my magic up to 2nd circle wizard, or all the way to a 3rd circle wizard, the wilderness stops being a question I have to answer at all. I thank Phil, Rudolph, and Mark for the work. All 3 of them tell me to hurry up and get on the road. I let that sit for a second. Then Phil starts loading me down with food, smoked meat and wine among it, and Rudolph pushes a heap of gold coins into my hands. Mark, who has nothing to give, gives me a hug instead and starts telling me what to do if I ever run into an enemy I cannot handle. I look at him with a great deal of hope, because I have seen what his stick does to a forest, and I ask whether he will come and help me. He tells me to run fast and to feel free to abandon the carriage. I let that sit too, and then I thank him. I have burned enough time in this village. If the Queen of the Magic Mirror traces me here, these 3 pay the bill for it. So I say goodbye properly, and they stop joking and turn reluctant and hug me one after another. All 3 of them smell like a smokehouse, and I want out of it before my eyes water. I climb up, take the reins, and roll. Behind me, the 3 brothers stand at the tree line watching my carriage crawl off like an old man with a bad hip. There is far too much stuffed in the back for one horse to pull properly. Nobody says a word about it. It is a very slow, very dignified exit, and I am not going to look back and confirm what their faces are doing. The hall is quiet when Queen Cecilia Medici asks the magic mirror who is the most beautiful woman in the world, and she takes the words like a glass of cold water, smiling. The smile does not survive long because a burly man with thick hair steps out of the shadows along the wall. His name is Renard Corey, and he calls her his master in a voice with nothing behind it and bows. She tells him coldly to go and kill Levi for her, and he answers that it will be as she wishes. The forest road is bad in the way forest roads are, with dead trunks lying across it, whole stretches buried under vines, and other small surprises waiting past every bend. A carriage cannot get through any of that, and mine is not a pumpkin coach, so flying is off the table. Normally I would be climbing down every few hundred meters to clear the way by hand. With wizard's hand I stay in my seat and cast, again and again, and the road empties itself ahead of me. When I get hungry, the invisible hand brings me white bread from the back, and when I get thirsty, it brings a bottle of wine forward and holds it while I drink. The wine is sweet and a little sharp, and I am in a good enough mood that I go through more of it than I meant to. I have no idea whether this counts as drunk driving. Dusk comes down while I am working, and wizard's hand hits level 2, which takes its lifting limit to 500 pounds, and widens the space I can reach into. The sun is still up somewhere, but not in here, because this deep in the trees the canopy shuts the light out completely. Something is howling out there in a tone I do not care for, which only means the night hunters are awake and going to work. My horse is an ordinary horse and it hears all of it, and it stops wanting to go forward. It is scared, and I am not going to argue with an animal about that. I have driven most of the day and my body and mind are both fine, but I pull off to the side anyway. The gathering spell brings fresh forage and clean water out of the forest, and wizard's hand carries it over to the horse. Once it has eaten its fill, I leave it to rest and climb into the carriage. Inside it is pitch black, which is what happens when it is pitch black outside. A fire is easy for me. Firewood is the problem, since the carriage is packed with food and gold coins and there was never any room for something heavier. In a forest, firewood is the last thing a man should worry about. I use the gathering spell on a few big trees, then use it again to pull the moisture straight out of everything I collected. What is left is a pile of wood dry enough to catch off a spark. The stove takes it, orange light fills the cabin, and a thin line of smoke goes up the chimney into the dark. I set food on the stove and lean against the wall watching it change color in the heat. The warmth pulls mosquitoes out of the forest, and they do not arrive in swarms. They arrive by the pound. The horse gets anxious again, so I let my first circle wizard mental power out around the camp like an invisible bowl turned over the whole of it. The mosquitoes stop dead at the edge of that line. A few predators circling out in the dark feel the same pressure, and I can sense the surprise going through them before they back away. I do not bother looking at them. I take the roast chicken off the stove, which reheating has not improved, and eat it with a cup of hot water until there is not one bone left on the board. Still hungry, I keep heating food and keep eating, and I stop at 80% full, by which point I have gone through a tenth of everything Phil packed for me. The conversion spell turns all of it into heat that runs out through every part of me, so efficiently that there is nothing left over to get rid of. At this rate, that pile of food has days in it, not weeks. Starving is not on my list of concerns. I am a first circle wizard with the gathering spell, a sack of gold coins, and now wizard's hand. The detection spell means I never walk past anything edible without knowing it is there. The problem is not eating. The problem is eating well, and for a man with 4 spells he can cast on a thought, even that is barely a problem. What is actually bothering me tonight is something else entirely. Once a man stops worrying about being killed, the rest of his appetites stand up and start asking for things. I am alone in the deep forest with no entertainment of any kind, and it is unbearably dull. Meditation is not an option anymore, because the basic meditation method has carried my spirit as far as it goes, and further sitting buys me nothing at all. So I climb down out of the carriage in the middle of the night and start casting the detection spell on everything within reach. The forest is full of things that could be seasoning, or mineral, or useful plant, and I go down the list with the gathering spell one item at a time. As a first circle wizard, the level 3 gathering spell costs me very little, since both it and wizard's hand are still apprentice tier work. A level 4 gathering spell would be a different animal, because level 4 means first circle, and first circle spells eat mana in a way my pool would feel immediately. They also hit like nothing an apprentice can manage, which is the trade you make. My thoughts start wandering off toward what else the upgraded detection spell might show me, so I shake them loose and get back to gathering. Some of what I pull is sweet enough to work into sugar. Some of it is salt. One plant gives up a powder with real heat in it, which is chili powder in everything but name, and certain tree roots carry the flavor of bay leaves and belong in anything braised. The problem is that I now have at least a pound of each, and nothing to put any of it in. That does not stop a first circle wizard for long. Between the gathering spell and wizard's hand, I turn out more than a dozen boxes, crude but clean, and load the seasonings into them. Then I remember there is no oil. The detection spell finds me a wild boar rooting around a few kilometers off, 400 or 500 pounds of it, caked in dried mud like a suit of armor. Ordinary hunters leave that animal alone as a matter of policy. On raw strength, I could probably wrestle the thing down. I am not going to. That would be crude, and a wizard ought to be elegant about these things. So I move off without my feet ever touching the ground, which in practice means wizard's hand picks me up and carries me. Level 2 lifts 500 pounds, and I do not weigh 500 pounds, so the arrangement holds, and it sets me down above the boar. The gathering spell supplies a sharpened wooden spear. The detection spell picks out the weak point and tells me exactly where to put it, and I drop out of the dark while the invisible hand drives the spear home. It goes in through the mouth and comes out the far end. The boar dies without ever feeling a thing. I gather it while it is still fresh, and the spell does the butchering better than any butcher alive. No blood anywhere. Square-cut pork chops, ribs and trotters, then intestines both large and small without a trace of smell. After that come liver and lungs and heart, ears and tongue and head meat, and a few good bones for stock. The part I actually came for is the fat, a great white heap of it. Start to finish the errand takes under 10 minutes. Back at the carriage, I build a stove beside it with wizard's hand, pull out an iron pot, and start rendering. Fresh water goes in first, so the heat cannot scorch the fat directly and the oil comes out slowly while the water boils away. The white blocks go faintly yellow at the surface, and the smell coming off them is old and pure and entirely about meat. As the pot gets hotter, the chunks shrink, and the white turns gold, and oil runs out of every one of them in thin streams that pool clear at the bottom. I stir them with a wooden spatula I threw together, keeping them off the bottom and turning every side into the heat. Hot oil spits at me now and then, and I let it. By the time the chunks are down to less than half their size, they have gone a deep gold brown, and the layer in the pot has gotten satisfyingly deep. I take wood off the nearby trees with the gathering spell, shape it into a seamless bucket, and pour the rendered lard into it. Doing that over and over leaves me dozens of pounds of clean lard with nothing floating in it. Given the way I eat now, that will not last as long as it sounds. I will deal with that when it happens. The rest of the boar goes into the pot next. The gathering spell already left every piece surgically clean, so there is no parboiling to do and no gamey smell to chase off. I simmer it all in clean water anyway, with salt and the spices I made. Braising takes time, and the smell travels a long way, and every animal in this forest with a nose starts pacing somewhere out in the dark. None of them come any closer, because the mental pressure rolling off a first circle wizard is a fence in its own right. Bored again, I go back to running the improved night breathing method until the pot is done. Dawn comes, and I turn the detection spell on myself out of habit and get news instead of numbers. The queen of the magic mirror has learned that Hysane is dead, and she has put a great knight at the head of a team and sent them after me. The reading gives me 5 days before they arrive. I frown at that, because a great knight stands one long step further from human than a knight does, and then I stop frowning, because that is all a great knight is. As a first circle wizard, I am not afraid of him. Most of what I carry is support work, granted, but a wizard is still a wizard, and the distance between wizards and knights of any grade is not a gap but a canyon. A wizard apprentice with enough time to prepare can kill a great knight. Knights win with their bodies and wizards win with their heads. I am not going to get comfortable about it either, because comfortable is how people die exactly on schedule. With my spirit capped by the meditation method, the two things I can still grow are the night breathing method and my spell levels. Running the breathing method on the road is awkward, but the road is a fine place to hunt the ingredients on that ointment recipe, and the refining can wait until I have them all. Body and mind both, with neither hand weak. So I keep casting wizard's hand at everything I pass, because level 2 is respectable for an apprentice, and thin for a first circle wizard. The experience crawls up, 36 out of 200, then 58, then 198, and finally the panel tells me wizard's hand has met the criteria and can be leveled. I take the upgrade without thinking twice. The crystal in my soul sea rearranges itself into something denser and more three-dimensional, and wizard's hand stands at level 3, which is the ceiling for apprentice tier spells. The new version is more flexible, reaches further, and lifts 1,000 pounds. Picture that hand closing into a fist and throwing a punch with 1,000 pounds behind the acceleration. Put a javelin or a long saber in it, and the arithmetic gets much worse for whoever is standing in front of me. The part that matters most is that nobody can see it coming. Anywhere inside the spell's range, I can have that hand exist precisely where I want it, and that opens more doors than brute force ever will. Level 3 still is not enough for a first circle wizard, so I keep grinding it. The trouble is that every level 3 cast costs real mana, so I cast less often and have to stop and meditate to recover, and the experience slows to a crawl. I am not only casting Wizard's Hand either, and every other spell takes its own cut. My total pool is stuck at 5,000 until I find a higher meditation method, and as my spells get stronger they get hungrier. On the road I also have to hold a reserve back for whatever tries to kill me. The math only runs one direction. The longer I travel, the slower I improve. 3 days later I come out of the trees, cross the stream that divides the kingdom of Francis from the kingdom of Amtir, and roll up on a small village on the far side. Wizard's Hand still has not reached level 4. The conversion spell has made level 2, purely because I never stop eating. My efficiency has gone up. My grocery bill has not. The panel reads out for me: Levi, Identity Transmigrator, Fugitive, First Circle Wizard, Great Knight, Strength 5.35, Constitution 5.02, Agility 5.59, Spirit 15.1, Charm 1.8, Mana at 258 drops out of 5,000. Abilities are Source Energy, which cannot be upgraded, and the Detection spell at level 4 with 40 out of 800. The Conversion spell sits at level 2 with 98 out of 200, and the Gathering spell at level 3 with 100 out of 400. The Moonwolf Night Breathing method holds level 3 with 50 out of 400, and Wizard's Hand holds level 3 with 65 out of 400. The Remarks line has not changed its opinion of me. I have learned the path to Second Circle Wizard, and my situation is not safe. I put the Detection spell on the village before I go anywhere near it. This is Salit Village, the fief of Knight Polot, who lives in a small wooden castle at the center of it. The castle is built out of tiered wooden arrow towers, wooden walls, barricade gates, stables, his own residence, a pond and granaries, and its defenses are honestly not bad. It houses Knight Polot, his family and his retinue. The village runs to over 400 people, which makes it larger than average. There is a hill nearby whose stone is excellent for castle work, so the quarry brings in more than the fields do. That puts the Polot family well above the neighboring knightly houses. 2 more lines come with the rest. Banditry has been climbing across the district lately, and several young girls have gone missing. And to the east there is a river with a watermill on it, where villagers bring wheat and other crops to be ground. A simple horizontal watermill saves a full day of labor for every 5 adults, and the mill keeps 15% of the flour as its fee. The miller has piled up a great deal of flour and is currently looking to sell it. By the time the reading finishes, I know this village better than the man who owns it. I know precisely how strong Knight Polot is. I know where his steward has hidden the gold coins he has been skimming off the top. What I actually care about is the watermill, because my food is running low in one very specific direction. Meat I have covered. The forest is full of small animals, and the gathering spell turns them into clean cuts without any effort. Flour is not something a man can pull out of a forest, at least not in quantity. What I am short of is bread, and I am still at the age where I am growing, and a body like mine needs more than protein going into it. Milk would be nice too, if anyone here will sell it. I turn the alchemy carriage toward the mill. Getting there is its own small trial. This village was never planned. It accumulated, with each family putting up a house wherever the terrain and the water and the fields and their in-laws allowed it.